Welcome to the fantasy audiobook. Naruto. Hyugas is paired with Magneto ability at the beginning. Chapter 61. Just when Namikaze Minato was in confusion, Hyuga Satoru had secretly taken out a bow and arrow. It's said to be a bow and arrow, but it looks weird. It's made entirely of dark metal, more like a crossbow, with a long track in the middle. Satoru, is this the bow you want to use? Namikaze Minato hesitated for a moment and then said, well, although the appearance is a bit strange, the bow should be correct. Hyuga Satoru thought for a while and said, after all, there has never been such a thing as a sniper rifle in the ninja world. If a real magnetic storm sniper was used, Namikaze Minato would definitely ask. It's very complicated to explain. It would be better to create a crossbow. Compared with the traditional metal bow, the electromagnetic propulsion efficiency is higher, and there is no need to explain it. With his current ability, it is simply too easy to use magnetic fluid to form a crossbow in advance. The Byakugan has been opened, and the Sand Shinobi camp is in sight. After reaching LV4 of electromagnetic force, the range of his white eyes has reached a terrifying 7 kilometers. It was really drizzle for 3 kilometers. Taking out a metal arrow and placing it on the slide of the crossbow, Hyuga Satoru began to silently select his target. The ninjas patrolling the Sand Shinobi camp can only move within a kilometer at most. Even if there were scouts released, Byakugan's early detection allowed him to avoid them. As long as he quickly changed positions after each session, no one would be able to catch him. It seemed that a high-level meeting had just been held. From the perspective of Byan, Hyuga Satoru saw many Sand Shinobi coming out of the largest tent. It just so happens that it saves me searching for targets one by one. Hyuga Satoru raised the corners of his mouth slightly. Good brother Luos Sha, thank you for marking me with a red dot. Soon, Hyuga Satoru locked onto one of them, Jonin, who seemed to have a high status in Sunagaku village. Wait until he returns to his tent and plans to rest. Hyuga Satoru comes. Whoosh. Along with the sound of sonic boom, a blue light with a thunder arc burst out from his fingertips and disappeared instantly. Next to him, Namikaze Minato, who was still looking suspicious at first, saw the arrow shot out. Suddenly, his mouth opened slightly, and his eyes were filled with shock. The unlucky Sand Shinobi who was chosen by Hyuga Satoru had just sat down on the chair when he suddenly felt a chill running down his spine. There was no time to react, and his head exploded instantly. Together with the wooden table in front of him, it exploded into countless pieces of powder and splattered. By chance, a Sand Shinobi who came in with food witnessed this tragic scene. Snapped. The dinner plate suddenly fell to the ground. Exclaimed, "You're dead." Your head exploded. In the distance, Hyuga Satoru picked up a metal arrow again and put it on the crossbow. He has already chosen his second target, who seems to be planning to take a bath. As soon as he took off his pants halfway, Hyuga Satoru hit him on the head. Next to him, Namikaze Minato swallowed silently, although he could not see the tragic situation of Sand Shinobi in the camp. But based on the speed and power of the shot, the power of this arrow will definitely not be low. Fortunately, I have the Flying Thunder God. If it is aimed at me, I should be able to dodge it in advance, right? But if you are in a battle, I'm afraid it will be a huge headache. It is conceivable that ordinary ninjas feel powerless after being targeted by Hyuga Satoru. Looking at Hyuga Satoru, he became more and more shocked. The second arrow is shot. Hyuga Satoru finished his work and said to Namikaze Minato, "Come in another position." After all, there are thousands of Sand Shinobi troops, including a large number of sensory ninjas and ninjas who are good at speed. It is the safest way to shoot and change positions. Namikaze Minato nodded and took a slight breath. Grab Hyuga Satoru's arm and teleport to a prepared location. Brush. The two figures appeared again, next to a huge rock, with 4 small black characters, Sword of Tolerance, printed on it. Feeling the space teleportation for the second time, Hyuga Satoru no longer felt anything unusual. I was thinking about whether to get the Flying Thunder God. At this moment, Namikaze Minato suddenly spoke and asked tentatively. Satoru, does your ninjutsu bow have a name? Name. Does electromagnetic gun count? Hyuga Satoru suddenly thought of something and had a bad feeling in his heart. Next to him, Namikaze Minato lowered his chin with his fingers, showing a thoughtful look, and said in a deep voice. Since there is no name, let me pick one for you. The lingering blue thunder light flashed away as fast as the wind. How about we call it Magnet Style Nimbus Hayate Thunderbolt Zero Style? After saying that, he looked at Hyuga Satoru excitedly, as if to ask if he is satisfied with the name. Hyuga Satoru expressed that he did not want to speak. God Magnet Style. What's coming? I can't remember it. Originally, one shot of the electromagnetic gun could easily kill the head, but after you called your name, everyone ran 800 miles away. He looks pretty good, but his brain is not that good. Taking a deep breath, Hyuga Satoru stopped his desire to complain, opened his eyes, and silently searched for the next victim. Next to him, Minato Namikaze scratched the yellow hair on his head when he saw that Hyuga Satoru didn't answer. Searching from the white-eye perspective. The target is locked. Fire. Another electromagnetic blast. The unlucky sand shinobi 3 kilometers away was the sand shinobi who went to take a shower to watch the excitement at the camp. The result was impartial, and Hyuga Satoru targeted him. 2 headless corpses fell together. Ah! Enemy attack! Enemy attack! Get ready to fight! Get ready to fight! The surrounding sand shinobi was in chaos. Luos Sha hurriedly ran out of the tent. Didn't they just finish the division killing conference? Why did something go wrong the next second? How many enemies are there? Where is the sensing ninja? Report the enemy's information quickly. The faces of the surrounding sensing ninja turned red and hesitantly spoke. I can't sense it. The enemy must be very far away, beyond my range of perception. Then how did he kill so many people? Luos Sha's eyes narrowed. Is this it? Sand Shinobi fearfully handed a black arrow to Luos Sha. Luos Sha's pupils suddenly shrank. Painful memories rolled over like a tide, completely drowning him. Again, and again, the teeth made a squeaking sound from the harsh bite. Luos Sha's eyes were bloodshot. Even after becoming Cage of the 4th generation, the humiliation of the mysterious bow and arrow attack is still vivid in his mind. Everyone is dispatched, no matter what, to find that beast. For the first time in his life, Luos Sha realized that he was so close to the beast who had been teasing him, so close that he seemed to be able to detect the other person's breathing. The Sand Shinobi camp was in complete chaos. A large number of scout sensing ninjas were dispatched, going crazy and almost turning the area around the camp upside down. However, that mysterious bow and arrow always comes unexpectedly. The number of deaths continues to increase. The location of the shot started to be strange. It was as if the mysterious man was sincerely teasing them. Every time the sensing ninja locks onto the opponent's aura, the aura will disappear instantly as soon as the large army begins to advance. Can't even touch each other's hair. Luos Sha seemed to see the other party's sinister smile, mocking his powerlessness. The blood rushed to his heart, and he spat it out. Trembling, he held on to the tent next to him to avoid falling. Who is it? Who are you? On that day, Cage Rasa of 4th generation recalled the fear of being dominated by the wretched 6th man, and the humiliation of being unable to touch the enemy no matter what. Satoru, do you really not think about my name? On the way back, Namikaze Minato's face was very sincere and he kept repeating one sentence. It's not because he is thick-skinned, but because he predicts that this move will definitely become famous in the ninja world in the future. If he can't use it to get the name, it will be a lifelong regret. No need to talk. Hyuga Satoru's voice was decisive. Just kidding, if I really use this name, I'm afraid I won't be able to see anyone in the future. That magnet-style light. Namikaze Minato spoke immediately. It's the magnet-style Nimbus Hayate Thunder Yazur Zero style, doesn't it sound good? Hyuga Satoru's face froze and he said helplessly. As long as you can remember it. But, when the conversation changed, he showed a smile and looked at Namikaze Minato. If you promise me a condition, is it okay to use this name? What conditions? Teach me how to fly Thunder God. Namikaze Minato was stunned for a moment. Immediately his expression became tangled. It's not that I don't want to teach you, I also discovered how terrifying it is to pair your ninjutsu with the flying Thunder God, but... He hesitated for a moment and said in a low voice. Flying Thunder God is an S-level forbidden technique. It is included in the Book of Ceilings. I have no right to teach it to you on my own. If you really want to learn, you can first redeem the cultivation methods from the sealed book, and then I will teach you the corresponding techniques. Hyuga Satoru nodded. Indeed, the great ninja village has very strict control over ninjutsu, especially this forbidden technique included in the sealing technique. The consequences of private transmission are very serious. But, Namikaze Minato hesitated for a moment and then added. Satoru, the Hokage should know that your ability is compatible with the Flying Thunder God. Your achievements in the war should be enough to exchange for an opportunity to view the seal scroll. So you don't have to worry. It will be a little later at most, and you can still get the cultivation method. Although he said that, Namikaze Minato had no hope in his heart. Obtaining a cultivation method is a cultivation method, and whether you can learn it or not is another matter. It can be said that except for the developer second Hokage Senju Tobirama, no one in the ninja world is more familiar with this technique than him. The principle of flying thunder theory is not complicated at all, and is even quite simple, similar to a complex version of reverse spiritualism. But the requirements for cultivation qualifications are quite terrifying. From development to now, only he and Senju Tobirama have mastered it. As for whether Hyuga Satoru has this qualification, he still doubts it. Hyuga Satoru didn't care at all. Anyway, learning to fly Thunder God has been on his must-do list. Konoha Camp. Several female ninjas were quietly gathering together, seemingly talking about something in a low voice. Hey, have you noticed? Minato-sama and Hyuga Satoru sneak out every afternoon these days. Yes, you noticed too. Minato-sama is a famous handsome guy in Konoha. He is handsome and sunny. Hyuga Satoru seems to be the first genius of the new generation. The two of them ran out secretly. Could they be going? The female ninja hesitated and whispered. Are you going to do something shameful? Hyuga Satoru and Namikaze Minato's mission to kill Sand Shinobi was also an absolute secret in the Konoha camp. Only Orochimaru and a few high-ranking officials know about it. Although Namikaze Minato has his own name, he still has a lot of popularity among Konoha female ninjas. Hearing this, a female ninja suddenly showed an expression of despair, looking up to the sky and sighing. No way, a handsome guy like Lord Minato is actually. As soon as she finished speaking, a female ninja next to her suddenly smiled evilly. When you say that, I get even more excited. Question mark. The other kunoichi looked at her in shock. Satoru, do you want to explain? Explain what? Hyuga Satoru looked at Uchiha Rin, who was blocking the door of the camp with a puzzled expression. He was crossing his arms and looking down at him. You really don't want to give me an explanation? Uchiha Rin repeated coldly. Sister, I really don't know what explanation you want. Hyuga asked, can I give you a tape? A look of anger appeared on Uchiha Rin's face, and then he seemed to think of something, his cheeks turned slightly red, and he tilted his head arrogantly. You sneak out every afternoon, and it is said that you are still with Namikaze Minato. You said, are you? Uchiha Rin's voice became smaller and smaller, until finally it was almost inaudible, and he lowered his head slightly. Hyuga was stunned. So stunned. Oh my god, is 8 trigrams like this in the ninja world? In the past few days, he would go out and shoot at Sand Shinobi with Namikaze Minato every day, and the results were remarkable. At Sand Shinobi, the camp was in chaos, and many high-level officials were killed on the spot by Hyuga Satoru. The difference in strength that originally surpassed Konoha was almost wiped out. Unexpectedly, Laozi is working tirelessly on the front line, and you are just talking nonsense in the back. What is this? Immediately, he looked at the arrogant and cold-faced Uchiha Rin in front of him with a headache. What to do? How should I explain it to Rin? Soon, he was suddenly stunned. Why should I explain to Uchiha Rin? But after learning the news, his first reaction was to worry that Rin would misunderstand and wanted to explain. And Uchiha Rin seemed to come to him immediately, wanting an explanation. Hyuga Satoru suddenly smiled, feeling warm in his heart, scratching his head and hesitating. Well, Rin, you know me, I'm not that kind of person. Although Minato Namikaze is indeed handsome, sunny, and tall, if he were a girl, he might really. Originally, after Uchiha Rin heard Hyuga Satoru speak, his face gradually calmed down and his cheeks turned slightly red. But the more I listened, the more I felt something was wrong. So you two really have an affair? She gave Hyuga Satoru a hard look. No, Rin, you know me. Oops, how should I put it? I am performing a special mission with Namikaze Minato. Because the mission is very important, it is kept secret and not disclosed to the public. It's really not what you think, Hyuga Satoru said nonchalantly. Uchiha Rin's face calmed down, he tilted his head slightly and said softly. Yeah, I understand. Thanks to the unremitting efforts of Hyuga Satoru and Namikaze Minato, a large number of senior members of the Sand Shinobi force were killed, and the camp was in chaos. Konoha tent. Orochimaru looked at Hyuga Satoru and Namikaze Minato in front of him with a smile. Well done. I didn't expect the two of you to work together to have such a big effect. Sand Shinobi is already in chaos. It seems it's time to take the initiative to attack. Namikaze Minato touched his head in embarrassment. It's all thanks to Wu, I didn't put in much effort. Putting the credit on Hyuga Satoru. One is that his character does not like to compete for credit, and the other is that he hopes to help Hyuga Satoru accumulate more military merits and exchange them for the Flying Thunder God's training method. Orochimaru looked at Hyuga Satoru up and down, as if he was observing a unique treasure. The more he looked at it, the deeper the smile in his eyes became. I didn't expect that ninjutsu, the bow and arrow developed by Wujun, would be so useful. It seems that I still know too little about Wujun. Lord Orochimaru, the focus now is on attacking Sand Shinobi. Hyuga Satoru pouted. After all, Minato is beside him, and Orochimaru is the nominal supreme commander. Otherwise, he really wanted to get to know Orochimaru better. Not that deep. Orochimaru took a slight breath, knowing that the opportunity was too good to miss. His face became serious, and he said in a deep voice. I'll call the senior management over immediately. It's time to launch an attack. Konoha Command Camp. Looking at the sand table map filled with various small flags, Orochimaru patted the edge of the sand table map with one hand, raised his head, and glanced at the many Jonin in the camp. Everyone, it's time to fight back. Before, we have been passively withstanding Sand Shinobi's attack, but now, it is time to take the initiative to attack. Shukaku Jonin, you lead the second and third troops, bypass the left wing and attack the flank of the Sand Shinobi camp. Yes, a ninja with a spiky head and scarred face responded calmly. Minato Jonin, you lead the fourth and fifth troops to attack from the right wing and block their retreat route. Yes, Namikaze Minato said in a deep voice. Tsunade, you lead the backup troops and be ready to treat the wounded at any time. Orochimaru looked at her deeply. The support work will be left to you. Yes, Tsunade nodded sluggishly and responded feebly. Orochimaru frowned slightly. He was different from Jiraiya. If it was Jiraiya who was commanding, he would definitely laugh and say something like, I've left everything to me, just have a good rest. After all, Tsunade's anemia is already very serious. But for him, any opportunity that can improve the winning rate of the war will not be missed. Tsunade is one of the Sannin, and it is impossible for him to leave such a huge help unused. Even if he cannot participate in the frontal battlefield due to hemophobia, he should still be able to lead the medical team to support him. After exhaling a breath, his eyes stopped on Hyuga Satoru, hesitated for a moment, and spoke. Satoru, you and I will be incorporated into the first unit and participate in the frontal battlefield. Fine, Hyuga Satoru nodded. The frontal battlefield is more suitable for his performance. As soon as Orochimaru finished speaking, almost everyone's eyes were focused on Hyuga Satoru, with shock and disbelief. The first unit is the main force of the war. It can be said that the ones fighting against are top powerhouses like Chio. Hyuga realizes that at such a young age, even if he is the first genius of the new generation, how can he be so virtuous and capable? Even Namikaze Minato was only participating in the flanking battle, right? Immediately, these people suddenly thought of something and looked at Namikaze Minato and Hyuga Satoru strangely. There seemed to be some weird rumors lately. Minato Namikaze looked troubled. What went wrong? Why are so many people looking at me like this recently? Orochimaru laughed. It seems that these Jonin's understanding of Satoru-kun is too shallow. After this battle is over, everyone's jaws will probably be shocked. Orochimaru suddenly looked forward to it. Sand Shinobi Campground. Luos Sha was pacing back and forth in the command camp. There was anger and unwillingness on his face, and he gritted his teeth. Once again I let that fool slip away. It was obviously so close that he could hear the other party's laughter, but no matter what, the response was a cold bow and arrow. 36. This is the number that almost makes Luos Sha collapse. There are a total of 36 elite Sand Shinobi. Don't underestimate this number, more than half of them are Sand Shinobi's command staff. At the recent high-level meeting, most of the long table was already empty. That fool, does he want to kill all the senior management of Sand Shinobi? Sand Shinobi's troops are now in complete chaos. Even if he sends out a large number of scouts to search, he still can't find any trace of the opponent. Moreover, the other party seemed to be deliberately disgusting him. The timing and location of snipers are becoming more and more insidious. Once there was no sign of sniping for a whole day, and Sand Shinobi relaxed slightly, thinking that the opponent had left. Unexpectedly, this was the beginning of the nightmare. After a night, the naked bodies of 6 senior executives were found in the Sand Shinobi camp. They seemed to be planning to take a bath, or to satisfy their physiological needs, when they happened to be targeted by the demon. One of them did not die immediately and tried his best to put on his pants. Halfway through, he expired. Luos Sha's teeth were almost broken. His face turned green and white, as if green onions were mixed with tofu and stirred with a juicer. Shrimp and pig heart. That beast not only wanted to kill Tsunagaku's command, but also wanted to make the entire top management of Tsunaga lose face. Sand Shinobi in the army now looks weird when he sees the senior officials. The information currently known is very limited, and we don't know how the other party avoided the detection of the sensing troops and scouts. We don't even know whether the other party is a ninja from Konoha. After all, Tsunaga village has information about Konoha. There is no such an extremely insignificant ninja who can use bow and arrow ninjutsu to such an extent. In this case, it might be a black market ninja hired by Konoha at a huge price. During a war, it is normal for a great ninja village to hire black market ninjas to fight. And the first time he encountered that beast was near the black market. Who is it? Who are you? Luos Sha roared silently. He swore that if he found that beast, he would kill him. 50,000 words are omitted below. At this moment, the door of the camp was pushed open, and a Sand Shinobi scout hurriedly ran in. Report, Master Casecage, something serious has happened. Konoha suddenly launched a large-scale attack. Luos Sha took a breath, calmed down immediately, and asked in a deep voice. Is the information true? It's absolutely true. Such a large-scale attack cannot escape our detection. Konoha will send at least 2,000 ninjas, and they will arrive near the camp in about 20 minutes. Idiot, it seems that the recent continuous sniping of high-level officials is indeed the work of Konoha. Do you want to attack while we are in chaos? Luos Sha gritted her teeth and shouted in a deep voice. Summon the senior management immediately and we will fight. The hilly area next to the land of rain. The terrain here is gentle, the air is humid, and the difference between the highest point and the lowest point is only 100 meters. Standing on a high place and looking out, you can see countless ninjas galloping across the mountains and plains from 2 directions. One of them is wearing a green ninja uniform with a red spiral pattern on his back. On the other side, there was a ninja wearing a white turban to block the wind and sand, and wearing a tan uniform, rushing to the front, holding a huge fan in his hand. It was as if 2 torrents of different colors were sweeping toward each other. Orochimaru stood on a high hill, overlooking the entire battlefield, taking in all the sights. Lord Orochimaru, the opponent is leading the ninjas as 4th generation Casecage Rasa to assist Chio. More than 3,000 ninjas were dispatched. The sensing ninja with his eyes closed spoke boldly and conveyed the information. Orochimaru's eyes flashed. 4th generation Casecage. Shadosuke Chio. Almost all of Tsunaga's top combat power appeared on the frontal battlefield, except for Jinchuriki, who had almost used all their elites. Now that you know the threat of Hyuga Satori ninjutsu, are you not going to delay it any longer? Orochimaru smiled slightly. With such a large-scale ninja dispatch, it was impossible to hide, and he had no intention of using sneak attack tactics. Taking a deep breath, he stood on the top of the hill and roared hoarsely. Start the war. The sound seemed to make waves in the air and quickly spread throughout the battlefield. The blood of Konoha's ninjas instantly expanded and they let out a hoarse roar. Roars gathered together, like countless ferocious beasts, echoing on the hills. Seeing this scene, Luos Sha also took a breath. No matter what, the momentum cannot be lost. He shouted in a deep voice. Start the war. The Sand Shinobi troops roared as if they had been beaten to death. Two torrents of different colors converged like this. Fire style. Dragon flame jutsu. The Konoha ninjas at the front suddenly formed a queue, forming seals with their hands quickly, and the fire attribute chakra surged. Countless red fire snakes spit out from their mouths, gathered together, and suddenly turned into a huge wall of flames, rushing towards the Sand Shinobi troops. Sand Shinobi sighed. It seems to have been prepared. Sand Shinobi, who was at the forefront holding a giant fan, fanned suddenly at almost the same time and spoke brazenly. Wind escape. Wind-killing formation. Countless sharp wind blades swept out from their fan blades and gathered together to form a huge formation of wind blades. They met the wall of fire in a mighty manner. Boom. This scorching battle between wind and fire ended in mutual destruction. The wall of fire and the wind formation tore apart almost simultaneously, turning into countless flying flames that landed on the entire battlefield. Seeing that the wind-killing formation blocked Konoha's fire-style attack, Luos Sha breathed a sigh of relief. Fire style restrains wind escape. Every time you use wind release to resist fire style, you need to invest more ninjas than Konoha. Fortunately, he made preparations in advance and placed the battlefield near the Kingdom of Rain. The air here is humid, which can weaken part of the power of fire style, making this advantage no longer obvious. Facing the flames falling like meteors, the two torrents roared and collided heavily. Clang! A Konoha ninja held a kunai and Sand Shinobi anxiously came together, accompanied by the sound of metal exchanges, sparks flying everywhere. He kicked the Sand Shinobi away, quickly threw out a kunai with his other hand, and nailed it to his throat. Before he started to feel proud, his body was shocked, and a puppet pierced his chest with the tip of a knife from behind. Hyuga Satoru traveled in the middle of the battlefield. It was like a deserted land, and no one could get close to him wherever he went. The kunai that was shot at him unexpectedly turned an incredible corner and hit the unlucky Sand Shinobi who was fighting next to him. When two parties go to war, it is usually soldiers against soldiers, generals against generals, and kings against kings. However, Hyuga Satoru was free and started killing the soldiers. However, the lethality is extremely terrifying. Hyuga Satoru pouted helplessly. At present, the top combat power of Sand Shinobi's side is being held back, so he only needs to exert his suppression power against conventional ninjas. As long as he can kill more Sand Shinobi, the probability of Konoha's victory will be greater. In addition, he secretly glanced at Uchiha Rin who was fighting not far away. Although he had warned Rin in advance that he would not participate in the frontal battlefield, the other party did not listen at all. Instead, he felt impatient. Helpless, Hyuga Satoru didn't dare to go too far. The battlefield is so cruel. What if a kunai flew over and hit flowers and plants? So I have no choice but to trouble the Sand Shinobi brothers around me. Please use your bodies to pick up the flowers and contribute your part to the flourishing growth of the flowers of the motherland. There's something weird about this kid. Sand Shinobi Jonin discovered Hyuga Satoru, with a solemn look on his face. Although Sunagakur village is a big player in magnet style, and the leaders in recent years are all magnetic players, their magnet styles are all aimed at sand iron or sand gold, and it is impossible to make kunai spin and jump so casually. So he guessed that Hyuga Satoru used a special secret technique. After hesitating for a moment, he did not choose to throw out the kunai in his hand, but quietly walked around behind Hyuga Satoru, preparing to get closer and make a sneak attack. Just when he reached a position more than 10 meters away from Hyuga Satoru, the kunai he was holding suddenly came out of his hand and was inserted directly into his throat. Gulu gulu. Bloody foam kept coming out of his mouth, and there was a hint of shock and disbelief in his eyes. He seemed to have discovered something, and he opened his mouth desperately, trying to convey the information vaguely. It's magnetism. However, the kunai on his throat suddenly spun around, his body twitched, and he fell straight backwards. You're the only one who still wants to sneak attack me. Hyuga Satoru curled his lips in disdain. His white eyes have already been opened, and even the slightest movement around him cannot be hidden from his observation. As long as he is willing, he can use magnetic fluid to create dozens of flying swords at any time, cosplay Li Xiaoyao, and kill with a sword. But that would definitely attract the attention of several cage-level powerhouses in Sunagaku's camp, and it would not be that simple to abuse them secretly. So now, I still use kunai and shuriken as low-profile flying swords, at least not attracting attention. Just like that, the Konoha ninjas who were fighting fiercely around them suddenly made a strange discovery. As they were fighting, the Sand Shinobi suddenly disappeared. Sometimes he was fighting fiercely with Sand Shinobi 1 second, and the next second the opponent was lying on the ground with dense kunai and shuriken stuck in his back. The Konoha ninja gasped. So scary. What a strange ability this is. Do you dare to think? While eating Bing Liang pills and singing songs, suddenly the head disappeared. Unlike the shock and confusion on the part of Sand Shinobi, the ninjas of Konoha knew the information about Hyuga Gokuso's bloodstains, and also knew that his magnet style could easily control the shuriken kunai. I just never thought about it. It would be so scary. War weapons. He could only think silently in his heart like this. In the distance, Uchiha Rin glanced at the seemingly leisurely figure with a hint of helplessness. She had long discovered that the Sand Shinobi rushing around were not very strong. They were just enough to warm up her body without putting too much pressure on her. Once an overly powerful Sand Shinobi approaches, he will suddenly and inexplicably fall down with a kunai stuck in the back of his head. What a nosy person. She pouted her lips arrogantly. That's all. It's like Shinigami has arrived. Lucky viewers are randomly selected. Panic spread among the Sand Shinobi troops, and they were finally shocked to find that so many teammates around them had died inexplicably. Gradually, even the appearance of death began to become strange, as if the Shinigami who chose the audience had become impatient. What on earth happened? Oh my god, is this human power? The remaining Sand Shinobi swallowed, cold sweat dripping from his forehead. Originally, their number of ninjas far exceeded that of Konoha ninjas, but as they fought, they became fewer and fewer, and they were surrounded by the corpses of their fallen comrades. On the other hand, Konoha's side had almost no losses and their fighting spirit was high. The constant sniping of senior executives in the past few days has left the seeds of terror in the hearts of these Sand Shinobi. But now, under this silent oppression, there are faint signs of collapse in their hearts. The other side, Orochimaru was fighting fiercely with Rasa. Both of them are the top commanders of the troops on both sides. Once they defeat each other, the victory of this war can almost be won. The same idea appeared in the minds of both parties almost at the same time. Luos Sha sneered in her heart, even though the top management of Sand Shinobi suffered heavy losses some time ago, after all, the number of ninjas dispatched far exceeded that of Konoha. This strength gap cannot be made up in a short time. Even if he can't deal with Orochimaru for a while, the overflowing ninjas can still form an encirclement and suppression force and gain an advantage on the ninja battlefield. Although Orochimaru who was fighting against him did not seem anxious, Luos Sha did not bother to guess in his mind. He was afraid that the other party had already been panicked and wanted to deal with his supporting troops in a hurry. Snort. The more this happens, the less likely it is for you to succeed. Orochimaru naturally didn't know what Luos Sha was thinking, but he just looked at the battlefield on the other side from time to time. That should be where Hyuga Satoru is, right? Why has it been so long and there has been no movement? With Wujun's ability, the momentum should be quite huge. But Orochimaru is not worried at all, even if the number of Sand Shinobi is much more than that of Konoha, if Hyuga Satoru is there. Not to mention being able to counterattack the opponent, at least it can close part of the gap. No need to worry in the short term. On the flank, it should be the main battlefield of Minato and Yi Kang. Minato has the Flying Thunder God and is not afraid of Hagura's Scorch style, so there should be no problem. However, Chio is still in a free-range state. Originally, Chio's old rival was Tsunade, and the two had already become enemies during World War II. Basically, you put the poison, I'll detoxify it, and you put the poison. In the end, Chio lost, and Tsunade's name as a medical saint resounded throughout the ninja world. So Chio became angry and picked up the puppet and rushed towards Tsunade, wanting to fight Tsunade, a medical ninja, in close combat. Then he was beaten into scum, referring to a puppet. Chio is still at his peak now, and his experience and strength have reached a delicate balance. If Tsunade is normal, she will naturally have nothing to fear. But Orochimaru knew very well that Tsunade was now suffering from hemophobia and could not be Chio's opponent. Moreover, she is currently staying in the support force and has not participated in the frontal battlefield. In this case, Sand Shinobi's side still surpassed Konoha in terms of top combat power. Orochimaru narrowed his eyes and stared at Rasa in front of him. He must be dealt with as soon as possible, and then go deal with Chio. Rasa also noticed Orochimaru's gaze and responded tit for tat. It's like a trick of fate. Neither of them knew that if they followed the normal trajectory, they would still have a fateful battle more than 10 years later. Magnet style. Placer gold explosion. Luos Sha flew high on the placer gold, took a slight breath, and raised his palm abruptly. Along with the rumbling sound, a huge surge of placer gold surged up, and the reflected faint golden light swept towards Orochimaru with terrifying power. Orochimaru showed no fear. Wei Wei bit her finger and slapped it on the ground. He spoke hoarsely. "Third uncle, come and repair the door." As soon as he finished speaking, the ground suddenly shook. Dang, dang, dang. 3 huge metal transition sounds sounded in succession, and 3 huge gates engraved with ghost and god patterns rose up, brazenly blocking the path of the placer gold wave. Boom! The big wave of placer gold hit the door hard, making a huge roar. The fighting ninjas around were also attracted by this massive battle. Oh my god, such a terrifying power. Is this the being who bears the name of Shadow? Whether it is the massive surge of sand gold or the 3 huge stone gates engraved with ghosts and gods, they are beyond the reach of ordinary ninjas. Luos Sha's eyes narrowed and he increased chakra's output. In an instant, with the dull sound of metal handing over, the big wave of placer gold actually overwhelmed the third uncle who came to repair the door, and swept towards Orochimaru. However, after being resisted by 3 layers of Rashomon, the speed of the sand gold wave was obviously slowed down a lot, and the kinetic energy was offset by a large amount. Orochimaru's pupils narrowed. Even the tailed beast Jade can withstand the third uncle's repair, but for ninjutsu, which is similar to a fluid-like placer gold wave, the effect is not so obvious. However, he had already made preparations. The whole body lay on the ground, like a 4-legged lizard, with its mouth open to the limit. Ninjutsu. Formation of 10,000 snakes. Accompanied by his hoarse voice. The densely packed lion majesty surged out of his mouth, spitting out scarlet letters, like a huge brown tide, twisting and wriggling towards the big wave of placer gold. The scene can scare 100 trypophobics to death. The showdown between Snake Lang and Jin Lang. Let's start with this. Now, Hyuga Satoru is still on the road to Yinran. However, he was surprised to find that there were fewer and fewer sand shinobi around him, and there were not many left to give him shade. Centered around his position, there seemed to be a vacuum zone, with no sand shinobi around for hundreds of meters. Really, are you so afraid of death? Hyuga Satoru curled his lips helplessly. The massive attrition of sand shinobi has caused panic and spread among the troops. Chio, who was looking for Tsunade, had to rush here and ask the remaining sand shinobi in shock. What happened? Why are there so many casualties on this battlefield? Looking around, Chio couldn't help but take a breath of cold air. It has only been half an hour since the war broke out. There are actually very few sand shinobi left on this battlefield. The ground is full of sand shinobi with kunai shurikens stuck in them. Some are even like hedgehogs, with densely packed kunai shurikens on their backs. Some are even more terrifying. The shurikens were actually forming something like words or symbols. I don't know, suddenly all my companions died. Sand shinobi cried in horror. It's too scary. All the shurikens are controlled by him. There is absolutely no way. Chio took a deep breath, turned his eyes to Hyuga Satoru, who was already empty around him, and spoke coldly. Is it you? I seem to have heard information about you, Konoha's new generation genius, magnet style. I didn't expect to be able to control shuriken to this extent. Different from ordinary sand shinobi, Chio is a character from the 2nd generation Cage period and has gone through 3 dynasties. In terms of understanding of magnet style, except for Cage herself, I am afraid that no one in Sand Hidden Village can surpass her. With just a simple observation, she came to a conclusion instantly. Regular sand shinobi retreat immediately. This is no longer a battle you can participate in. Puppet Master, prepare to fight. The puppet masters who followed Chio immediately manipulated a large number of puppets to surround Hyuga Satoru. Keep a good distance. Remember to be careful with his shuriken. Chio ordered calmly, staring at Hyuga Satoru in the middle. Judging from the miserable state of sand shinobi around him, Hyuga Satoru's ability to control shuriken kunai is extremely terrifying. Even she has to guard against capsizing in the gutter. But Chio's eyes flashed coldly. The puppet master happens to be able to perfectly restrain this ability. First of all, the puppet master cannot fight at close range and keeps a long distance from Hyuga Satoru. Secondly, an excellent puppet master can control multiple puppets at the same time. As long as one puppet is left by his side, he can guard against Hyuga Satoru's magnet-style sneak attack. It can be said that the war situation is already doomed. Not far away, the ninjas of Konoha panicked. Should we support Hyuga Satoru? That's Chio. There are so many puppet masters. Uchiha Rin stopped them. Based on her understanding of Hyuga Satoru's ability, those puppet masters might be in bad luck. Speak calmly. You don't need to take action, otherwise it will only cause chaos for Wu. Is this so? The surrounding Konoha ninjas looked at each other with some hesitation, but Uchiha Rin had already spoken, and they didn't know what to do. Looking at the puppets surrounding him, Hyuga Satoru didn't have the slightest fear, but chuckled and said, "You want to use this garbage against me? Ridiculous." As soon as he finished speaking, the puppet masters around him became furious and wanted to rush up and eat Hyuga Satoru alive. Chio gritted his teeth. She is the strongest puppet master in Sand Hidden Village. She has been immersed in the puppet world for decades. How can she tolerate others humiliating the puppet master like this? Hyuga Satoru quickly smiled with a hint of apology and spoke immediately. "I'm sorry, I didn't mean it to you." Chio's expression immediately softened a bit. "Humph, that's pretty much it. I mean, everyone here is trash. I'm not targeting you. I mean everyone here is rubbish." Hyuga's calm voice was like a boulder thrown into the lake, causing waves in an instant. The surrounding puppet masters, as well as Chio, were completely angry, and stared at Hyuga Satoru with gritted teeth. "I wish I could swarm him and eat him alive. Young man, I advise you not to be too arrogant." Chio took a deep breath, tried to calm down, gritted his teeth slightly and stared at Hyuga Satoru and said, "Maybe this is the other party's conspiracy. Deliberately use words to anger us and make us emotionally upset, and then secretly control the kunai to attack." Hyuga Satoru's miraculous magnet style left a very deep impression on her. The tragic situation of Sand Shinobi around her was still vivid in her mind, and his conspiracy must not be allowed to succeed. How can you still be called a young man if you are not full of energy? Hyuga Satoru rolled his eyes and responded to Chio's joke very cooperatively. "Haha, are you the #1 genius of Konoha's new generation? It is said that you gained this title after defeating the son of White Fang." Chio snorted coldly. "In a sense, I want to thank you. White Fang and I have a blood feud. My son and daughter-in-law all died at the hands of that fool." Hyuga Satoru snorted. "Don't use such small means." Behind him, two puppets approaching quietly suddenly twisted, their bodies shaking uncontrollably and making creaking sounds. "Attract my attention from the front, and use a puppet to sneak attack from behind. Chio, you are still a shadow-level expert who has survived for so many years. You are too cautious." Chio's pupils narrowed. She has emerged since the First World War, relying not only on strength, but also on stability and resourcefulness. The reason why she has been attracting Hyuga Satoru's attention is that she found that Hyuga Satoru's Byakugan was not open, and she wanted to solve the opponent at the minimum cost. Unexpectedly, Hyuga Satoru's magnet style can be directly affected by the puppet. Is Hyuga Satoru's magnet style so terrifying? Even the puppets. On the other side, the Konoha ninjas who wanted to support had looks of shock and admiration in their eyes. Looking at this scene, Uchiha Rin breathed a sigh of relief. Having been with Hyuga Satoru for so long, she naturally knows that Hyuga Satoru's magnet style is not just for metals such as shuriken kunai. To be exact, he can control as long as it's metal. It was precisely because of this that she stopped the Konoha ninja who wanted to support them. These puppets looked like they were showing their teeth and claws, which was a great threat. But in Hyuga Satoru's eyes, they are just humanoid toys for entertainment. The two humanoid puppets, after trembling for a while, suddenly disintegrated, revealing metal parts that had been twisted into a ball. Hyuga Satoru snorted. Don't tell me who the other party is. And don't tell me how many people there are on the other side. Just be the puppet master. I'll kill. Chio's eyes were 3 parts shocked, 3 parts dull, and 4 parts ashen. Only now did she realize how wrong she was. It turns out that Hyuga Satoru can control not only metals like kunai shurikens, but also special metals in the puppet's body, which he can easily control. In the process of making a puppet, it is impossible not to add metal, whether it is for the needs of joint movement or to improve the strength of the puppet body. In other words, the puppet master poses no threat to Hyuga Satoru at all. A deep sadness and fear surged into her heart. After so many years and dozens of large and small battles, she had never been so panicked. What is the concept of this ability? As long as Hyuga Satoru leads a team of elite troops, he can even directly enter Tsunade village, 7 in and 7 out. Nearly half of Tsunade village's combat force are puppet masters. In Hyuga Satoru's eyes, these ninjas are just food delivery men. For the rest of them, if they are unable to use kunai shuriken, their strength will be greatly reduced. This child must not be kept. After the intense fear, only the thick murderous intent remained. At this age, he is far from the peak of his strength. Once he fully grows up, Chio took a deep breath to calm down his head and shouted immediately. All puppet masters, step back and recycle the puppets. Don't let him find a chance. After hearing Chio's order, the surrounding puppets hurriedly reacted and moved their fingers slightly, trying to control the puppets to return. However, it's too late. You've been arrogant for so long and now you want to run away. Hyuga Satoru snorted. I saw a large number of puppets around. Their bodies suddenly twitched a few times, and then they rushed towards their own puppet master, waving their weapons, as if they had pink eyes. Yao Shou, the puppet has killed the puppet master. I don't know who screamed first, and the scene was very chaotic for a time. Those puppets still connected to the blue chakra line were chasing their own puppet masters like crazy and slashing. Like chopping spare ribs, with a crunching sound, the ninja sword in his hand kept chopping. Too cruel. The eyelids of the Konoha ninjas who were watching twitched. Even if they have lived for so many years, they have never seen such a tragic scene. The puppet master was dismembered by his own puppets. Who can explain this? The eyes looking at Hyuga Satoru became more and more frightened. Chio's teeth were almost broken. The training of a puppet master is different from that of ordinary ninjas. It requires a lot of resources, and the production of each puppet also consumes a lot of financial resources and manpower. Now, everything is ruined. There seemed to be bloodshot eyes bursting out. Chio stared at Hyuga Satoru, wishing he could skin him and cramp him. Magnet style's priority is actually higher than that of puppet master. This unscientific magnet style is simply unheard of. Obviously, while Hyuga Satoru is controlling the puppet master is also desperately controlling the puppet. But with little success. The most obvious effect is to make the puppet chop slower, or to freeze for a while after chopping. Not only was it unable to help him solve his predicament, but his death became even more painful. That's it. Chio took a slight breath. With murderous intent in his eyes, he took out a scroll and threw it high. Can you also control the puppets made by the ancestor of the puppet master? The huge white scroll suddenly unfolded, and 10 strange characters glowed blue, twisting and squirming. In an instant, they turned into 10 strange puppets wearing white robes. White secret technique. 10 people in Chikamatsu. The 10 legendary puppets left behind by Monzaemon, the ancestor of puppets. 10 strange puppets with strange shapes and white robes. The moment he was summoned, he was controlled by Chio and immediately threw away the metal weapon on his body. Monzaemon is the first-generation puppet master and the ancestor of puppets. In his time, the secret method of making puppets was completely different from now. Even if metal is used, the amount is quite rare. Most of them are made of other high-strength materials. Although throwing away the armed metal ninja tool would greatly reduce the puppet's attack capability, now, Chio has no choice. The miserable scenes of those puppet masters who were hacked to death by their own puppets are still vivid in my mind. Some of them did not die immediately, but were lying in a pool of blood, wailing in pain. Chio carefully distanced himself, controlled the white secret skill puppet to make a creaking sound, and surrounded Hyuga Satoru. Sure enough, as it approached, the puppet body responded with a strong resistance, as if it had its own consciousness. However, under the control of her powerful chakra, these changes were suppressed one after another. So close. Chio wiped the cold sweat from his forehead and breathed a sigh of relief silently. After all, he is the most powerful puppet master in the world. Whether it is the ability and skills to manipulate puppets or the richness of chakra, they are far beyond what ordinary puppet masters can match. Coupled with this special puppet derived from the ancestor of the puppet master, he was finally able to suppress Hyuga Satoru's counterattack and avoid the tragedy of being hacked to death by his own puppet Kaka. Hyuga Satoru frowned slightly. He could sense a small number of metal parts inside the bodies of these puppets, but it was too difficult to gain control of these 10 puppets just through this. But, the corners of his mouth curled up slightly. There's more to my abilities than meets the eye. The puppets that had been completely controlled by him, after solving their own puppet master, rushed towards the 10 white secret skill puppets that surrounded them. But the gap in quality is almost impossible to bridge. After a few simple duels, it was torn apart by Bai's secret skill puppet with his bare hands, and the parts flew away. Should we go up and help? On the Konoha ninja side, someone looked worried and looked at Uchiha Rin hesitantly. No, I believe that Satoru's ability will never be that simple. Although she said this, her clenched palms revealed her inner nervousness. After all, the opponent is Tsunagaku's Shadosuke Chio, who was already famous in the ninja world during World War II, and his reputation is even higher than that of the newly appointed 4th-generation Kazekage Rasa. The second Magatama Sharingan has been activated, keeping a close eye on every change on the battlefield. Hyuga Satoru is here. It's still a big fight between the puppets. Because they were afraid of Hyuga Satoru's magnet-style ability, none of the 10 puppets of the White Secret technique were equipped with any metal weapons. They basically could only roll up their sleeves and tear them apart with the puppets that rushed towards them. Relying on the absolute advantage of quality, they have the upper hand. After a chaotic fight, the originally clean white robe became tattered, revealing the puppet's body. Almost no one noticed. At the same time as the puppets were fighting, some black liquid was crawling along the puppet controlled by Hyuga Satoru and onto the white secret skill puppet, like small black worms, crawling into the white secret skill puppet along the gaps. Seeing that his white secret skill puppet had the upper hand, Chio couldn't help but sneer. It seems that you are nothing more than this. For the future of Sand Hidden Village, I must get rid of you this time. But soon, her expression froze. The resistance to operating the bi-secret skill puppet suddenly increased countless times, and every movement was unusually stiff, as if the joints were filled with mercury. What happened? Chio looked horrified and spoke in shock. The corners of Hyuga Satoru's mouth curled up slightly. In the X-Men movie days of future past, in order to deal with the Little Devil's mechanical sentry, the young Laowan controlled the rails on the train and penetrated into the sentry's body, thus gaining control of the Sentinel robot. Afterwards, Wan, the leader of the scene, led his sentry brother and descended from the sky on the football field. Hyuga Satoru's nano-magnetic fluid is not only a little bit stronger than railroad tracks. As long as you enter the White Secret Technique puppet and attach it to the corresponding mechanical joints, the control capabilities you gain will far surpass Chio. This is also the reason why Chio suddenly lost control of the puppet. With her ability, she is still far from competing for control of the nano-magnetic body. The scene suddenly changed. The 10 White Secret skill puppets that originally surrounded Hyuga Satoru suddenly turned around and surrounded Chio. Shocked, Chio was completely stunned. Not only Chio, but also the Konoha ninja who were watching not far away, and the remaining Sand Shinobi who were cheering for Chio, were all stunned for a moment. What happens? Isn't it true that Hyuga Satoru can't control the White Secret Technique puppet? Why did the situation turn upside down in an instant? 10 disheveled puppets surrounding the thin Chio. Uchiha Rin looked at this scene and couldn't help but breathe a sigh of relief. The palms he had been clenching loosened, revealing his sweaty palms. What a risk. It seems I didn't underestimate Satoru. He really has a way to deal with it. Immediately, a look of curiosity appeared on her face, and she stared at the battlefield intently. What else happens next? Chio's defeat is a foregone conclusion, right? What method will Satoru use to deal with her? The next second, when she saw the change of the puppet, she was stunned and opened her mouth slightly in a daze. I saw 10 disheveled puppet men gathered in a group on the battlefield, facing Chiyoda in the middle. Take turns dancing to the pure land of bliss. Those white secret puppets twisted their bodies strangely. While dancing their upper bodies, they even stretched out their right feet and shook their legs towards Chio in the middle. Chio collapsed instantly. Having been in the ninja world for decades, she had never seen such a scene. Shame, humiliation, all kinds of mixed feelings came up. I wish I could just bump into the puppet and end the rest of my life. Hyuga Satoru's lips curved slightly. Chio, don't be idle, let's dance together. This is a big gift I prepared for you. As soon as he finished speaking, the white secret skill puppets dancing in the Pure Land suddenly froze, and suddenly grabbed the body of Chio in the middle, manipulating her into various strange postures. Only the head of Chio's body could be controlled freely. Surrounded by puppets, he raised his head in humiliation, and a line of hot tears flowed from the corners of his eyes. Looking up to the sky and sighing, I'm so ashamed of myself. Oh my god, is that Chio-sama? Asshole, what is that beast doing to Chio-sama? How dare you humiliate our Sunagaku leader like this? On the battlefield, the sound of gnashing teeth could be heard from time to time. The remaining sand shinobi could not wait to swarm up and dismember Hyuga Satoru alive. Suddenly sand shinobi sighed with emotion. Actually, Chio-sama is quite good looking too. ? The rest of sand shinobi looked at that man in shock. Chio wanted to die. She wished she could bite her tongue to pieces and end her life directly, saving the rest of her life from death. But she was horrified to find that she couldn't even bite her tongue. The body is completely out of control. If it was said that he was controlled by his own puppet before and had no choice but to take steps to dance, but now, his body is involuntarily and actively dancing that weird dance. Oh my god, this is really not my intention. I have absolutely no control over my self-sufficiency. As the strongest puppet master in Sand Hidden Village, he was actually controlled by his own puppet in front of the public. Who can I talk to reason with this? This beast. Unable to control his body, Chio could only express his anger with his eyes. It must be this little Hyuga kid. Before, I suddenly felt a sticky liquid getting on the puppet's body and getting into it. Then suddenly he couldn't control himself and actively cooperated with the puppet to dance this ugly dance. Is it some top-level puppet master ability? It's actually more powerful than Chakra's line control ability. She was completely dead. Since she could no longer resist, Chio simply gave up her struggle and began to think about the source of this strange ability. The puppet master uses chakra wires released from his fingertips to control the puppets. If it is connected to a weak ninja, it can also be controlled. The point is, Chio never found traces of chakra invasion from his body. This is what scares her the most. This ability does not require chakra. This unscientific. The shocked discussions of sand shinobi around her reached her ears one by one. She knew that Hyuga Satoru did not choose to kill herself and let herself dance like this in public because he wanted to destroy the will of Sunagaku village from the source. It can be expected that her deeds will spread throughout the ninja world in the future. Even a certain horn pimple will have ninjas talking about it in surprise. Chio Kajizuke of Sunagaku village was actually controlled by his own puppet. The reputation of Sand Hidden Village will also suffer a devastating blow. Let me ask, even one of the leaders of my own village was played by the enemy so easily. How will the ninjas of Sunagaku village behave in the future? You will be laughed at for the rest of your life. What a vicious little devil. A chill surged deeply from Chio's heart, and she knew that with her own strength, she could not escape no matter what. After hesitating for a moment, she finally made up her mind. Chakra surges in the body and rushes into the abdominal cavity. He suddenly raised his head and let out a heart-rending roar. Luos Sha, save me. The sound seemed to turn into sound waves, spreading around the battlefield with her as the center. Luos Sha stepped on the placer gold flying carpet and looked down at Orochimaru below from midair. The showdown between Sand Wave and Snake Wave continues. In terms of quantity, the placer gold surge summoned by the placer gold explosion far exceeded the Wanluo snake formation. Under the impact of the placer gold surges layer by layer, a large number of brown lion majesty were buried alive. If dealing with regular ninjas, these Lion Majesty will be very terrifying, especially with the damage bonus for trypophobia. However, Placer Gold is a dead thing, so they are not afraid of Lion Majesty, and they don't have to worry about the effects of toxins, so they naturally have the upper hand. However, whenever a surge of Placer Gold floods the snake group, the buried Lion Majesty will actually explode directly. With the rumbling roar, the big wave of Placer Gold was directly blown to pieces. After Luos Sha controlled the Placer Gold to gather again, another group of Lion Majesty attacked. Orochimaru, does his belly have a bottomless pit? Luos Sha frowned slightly and stared at Orochimaru below with a hint of displeasure. The latter was lying on the ground like a four-legged lizard, with his mouth wide open as if he was doing a nucleic acid test. The densely packed Lion Majesty is constantly crawling out of his mouth. From the battle until now, he has maintained this posture, constantly summoning a large number of Lion Majesty. It is precisely because of this that the snake group can maintain a certain number under continuous self-destruction attacks. It should be a special psychic technique. It is connected to a certain snake cave in Longdi Cave, and it continuously transports Lion Majesty. Luos Sha thought for a few times and said with a slight frown. In this case, the battle between him and Orochimaru will be a stalemate. Even if it is a sneak attack with Placer Gold, it must be able to get past the dense swarm of snakes around it. However, Luos Sha was not anxious at all. He had already figured out the strength of the ninja sent by Konoha. Not to mention that his side greatly exceeded the number of regular ninjas in Konoha. In terms of top combat power, Namikaze Minato was held back by Yi Kang, and he was fighting Orochimaru. But Chio is free, which will definitely cause terrifying suppression to Konoha's regular ninjas. For Chio, Luos Sha is still quite relieved. After all, he has been a powerful figure in the ninja world since the second generation Cage period. The special identity of the puppet master will be maximized on the battlefield. As the strongest puppet master, Chio can control a puppet with one finger. The combat power of one person is converted into the combat power of 10 people. The damage to Konoha ninja must be extremely terrifying. Perhaps the ninjas on the Konoha side were slaughtered by Chio just like chopping melons and vegetables. Although Orochimaru doesn't show any anxiety on the surface, he might be extremely nervous in his heart and wants to defeat me as soon as possible to deal with Chio. Snort. Luos Sha snorted in her heart. The more this happens, the less likely you are to succeed. We must delay the time so that Chio can maximize her strength. At this moment, a harsh sound came from far away on the battlefield, making Luos Sha stunned for a moment. Luos Sha, save me. Luos Sha, save me. There seemed to be a hint of grievance and crying, and the sound wave spread throughout most of the battlefield. Wherever it went, almost everyone stopped and showed a confused look. Is this Chio's voice? Luos Sha looked shocked. What happened? Chio is actually asking me for help. She is the strongest puppet master in Sunagaku village. Is there a strong person hiding in Konoha? Tsunade. No, with Tsunade's strength, even if Chio is defeated, she will never ask for help. I'm afraid there is more than one person on the other side. Could it be that Hiruzen Sarutobi himself ended up leading the elite troops to hide in the battlefield? You want to eliminate the strongest puppet master of Sunagaku village. The more Luos Sha thought about it, the more frightened she became. Without any delay, he gave up the fight with Orochimaru. Controlling the sand gold flying carpet, he hurriedly flew to the location where the sound came from. When he arrived, it was just a glance. Immediately stunned. Chio-sama, Chio-sama, how could you? Luos Sha's pupils shrank, and she looked tremblingly at Chio who was dancing below. The dignified shadow assistant of Sand Hidden Village was actually manipulated by his own puppet in public on the battlefield. What happened? All the nervous speculations before suddenly disappeared, leaving only deep shock and hesitation. Don't look, don't look. Luos Sha. Chio pursed her lips tightly, turned her head away, and a hot tear fell from the corner of her eye. I am all ready. Luos Sha suddenly felt that her heart was about to be broken and her breathing almost stopped. This is Shadow Assistant Chio of Sunagaku village. Who is the most powerful puppet master in the world? He was able to turn Chio into this. His eyes swept around. A feeling of shock and desolation filled my heart. I saw the corpses of sand shinobi everywhere on the battlefield, so densely packed that it was too horrible to look at. What shocked him even more? It was the puppet master army led by Chio. Wherever he looked, he couldn't find any intact corpses. The resources spent to train an excellent puppet master far exceed that of an ordinary sand shinobi. The complete annihilation of the puppet army was undoubtedly a heavy hammer that hit Luos Sha's agitated heart. Lost. Completely lost. Luos Sha knew that this battle was completely lost. Not to mention that there is no sand shinobi combat power in this battlefield. As the strongest combat power, Chio was actually manipulated by his own puppet in public. Both his reputation and his personal spirit have been completely destroyed. Luos Sha took a deep breath. I knew I had to retreat. He threw his head back and roared. Retreat, retreat. Wow, a large amount of gold placer surge spread from under his body, turned into a huge gold placer palm, grabbed Chio who was still dancing, and quickly flew away into the distance. Retreat, retreat. Ross's roar spread across the entire battlefield in an instant. The sand shinobi who were still fighting fiercely heard the roar, no longer stopping at all, and immediately ran away. Konoha's ninjas wanted to chase. Orochimaru gave a hoarse order. Stop chasing. He still outnumbers us. If we continue to chase, it won't do us much good. Let's clean up the battlefield first. Hearing this, Konoha gave up the pursuit, continuously throwing kunai, beating those who escaped sand shinobi. Luos Sha stood on the sand gold flying carpet, her brows slightly wrinkled involuntarily, looking at a Hyuga ninja below. The other party is also looking at him. The two just looked at each other. Who is this person? Why does it give me a familiar feeling? Such thoughts suddenly emerged from Luos Sha's heart. He did not choose to stop, and kept manipulating the sand gold, taking himself and Chenio to fly away into the distance. Until the Hyuga ninja completely disappeared from sight. Luos Sha was relieved when she saw that Konoha did not choose to pursue. He asked in a deep voice to the dull Chio next to him. Chio-sama, what happened? Why did you suddenly? Chio's fingertips trembled slightly and she swallowed. As if recalling something scary. He spoke hoarsely. It's that Hyuga ninja. It's him. Luos Sha's pupils suddenly shrank. He immediately thought of the figure who looked at him before. Could it be? Did we win? Tsunade retreated. We really won. Great. Ha ha ha. The Konoha sighed, after a brief hesitation, immediately cheered in surprise, stepping on Sand Shinobi's body and celebrating loudly. Konoha and Tsunade village are old enemies. In World War I and World War II, I don't know how many Konoha ninjas were killed or injured in the war with Tsunade village. Both sides want to beat each other's tendons and drink each other's blood. Orochimaru rushed over after hearing the news. After scanning the surrounding battlefield, he took a deep breath. Then he laughed, looked at Hyuga Satoru in surprise, and spoke hoarsely. Sure enough, I was right about Wu-kun. Wu-kun's magnet style will show its true power on the battlefield. You also defeated Chio, right? She is famous as the strongest puppet master. I wonder what method Wu-jun used to defeat her. Orochimaru is very curious. Chio has been famous for a long time. In terms of strength, he may not dare to say that he can surely win her. The surrounding Konoha ninjas suddenly looked strange when they heard Orochimaru's voice. They looked at each other and wanted to speak, but they didn't know how to speak. Puppets are also made of metal. Hyuga Satoru said calmly. I see. Orochimaru nodded suddenly. At the same time, I paid more attention to Hyuga Satoru in my heart. Third generation Kazekage also masters the magnet style, and there is absolutely no way he can suppress so many puppets and Chio so easily. This shows that Hyuga Satoru's magnet style is far stronger than the third generation Kazekage. Blood inheritance mutation, Orochimaru wondered. There was also a hint of uncertainty in Hyuga Satoru's eyes. Hyuga Satoru is really curious, what will happen to Chio after she returns to Tsunade village? The dignified Chio Kajizuke was counter-accused by his own puppet, and under the watchful eyes of so many sand shinobi. Tisk tisk. What is social death? It was precisely because he knew that letting Chio go would be an almost devastating blow to Tsunade village that Hyuga Satoru did not choose to kill her. Only a living Chio can maximize its usefulness. Whether it is the puppet master of Sand Hidden Village or Cascade Rasa, under the influence of electromagnetic force, they pose almost no threat to him. In this case, the more casual he behaves, the higher the morale of the Konoha ninja will be. The mental blow to Sand Hidden Village will also be greater. Hyuga Satoru is already looking forward to it. What kind of chaos will the Sand Shinobi camp be like after this battle? After cleaning the battlefield, Konoha's large army chose to return to the camp. Although the Tsunade troops were seriously injured, they still had great strength. It was not realistic yet to capture the opponent's camp in one go. Moreover, after the war, there were too many Konoha ninja casualties. The top priority is to cooperate with the backup troops to count the injuries and treat the injured ninja. Hyuga Satoru returned to his camp. After this battle, Hyuga Satoru's reputation in the Konoha camp increased significantly. What went viral along with it was the enchanting dance of Chio Kajizuke of Tsunade village. On this day, Hyuga was about to go to bed when he heard a quarrel coming from outside the camp. Save him, he is just a child. Save him quickly. As soon as Hyuga Satoru opened the door of the camp, he saw several Konoha ninjas not far away who seemed to be arguing about something. On the stretcher next to him, a wounded man covered in blood was lying. He didn't look very old. Hyuga Satoru actually knows two of those quarreling ninjas. One is Anko, and the other is Tsunade's little follower Shizune. I'm sorry, there's nothing we can do. His injuries are too serious. Unless Tsunade-sama takes action, we will not be able to cure him with our abilities. It's just that Tsunade-sama is currently. Shizune lowered her head slightly, with a hint of apology, and kept explaining to the ninjas who gathered around her. However, the other party didn't seem to listen and kept pushing her. Even if Tsunade-sama can't take action, the medical ninjutsu you and she have learned for so long can't even save a single injured person. Shizune pursed her lips slightly, lowered her head, and said nothing. Beside the stretcher, Hongdu didn't seem to give up. She wiped the sweat from her forehead with the back of her blood-stained hands, and placed her hands on the young man's chest with a faint green light. Ahem, cough, no, it's okay. The young man on the stretcher suddenly coughed a few times, and a large amount of bright red blood spilled from his mouth. He looked at the arguing companions with distracted eyes. I have been prepared for a long time, cough, there are other wounded, don't waste time on me, cough cough. Every time he said a word, he would cough up a mouthful of blood. The companion who was still arguing with Shizune suddenly had tears in his eyes and was sobbing slightly. Hyuga Satoru let out a long breath. I roughly understood what happened. Ninja version of medical trouble. It is war after all. His strength has long been at the forefront of the ninja world, and his ability can be maximized in war, so he can easily play with Chio and Sand Shinobi. But for most ordinary ninjas, the cruelty of war is clearly visible. The Third War was one of the most brutal wars in the history of the ninja world. Before the electromagnetic force was upgraded to LV4, Hyuga Satoru had always been terrified by the oppression of war. Without hesitation, he walked over. How's it going? Crouching beside Anko, he asked softly. Hongdu looked surprised. Satoru, you're here. But when he saw the wounded on the stretcher, his face suddenly darkened. He was seriously injured. Mr. Orochimaru taught me the structure of the human body. There were at least 3 penetrating injuries in his body that caused massive bleeding. If we can't rescue him as soon as possible, I'm afraid. Is that so? Hyuga Satoru nodded. Beside, the surrounding Konoha ninjas all showed strange expressions after recognizing Hyuga Satoru. He must be the rumored Hyuga ninja. Let Chio dance strangely in front of all the Sand Shinobi. What does it seem to be called? The Pure Land of Bliss is coming. But I haven't heard that he can do medical ninjutsu. Shizune hesitated for a moment, glanced at Hyuga Satoru, and said, his injuries can only be treated by Tsunade-sama, but Tsunade suffers from hemophobia, is it impossible to cure him? Hyuga Satoru sighed slightly. Considering the severity of Tsunade's hemorrhage, it might be possible to mobilize medical ninjas to carry out rescue work, but if they really start treating the wounded with such heavy bleeding, I'm afraid he will freeze in place, unable to even move. Anko still didn't give up, probably because she studied under Orochimaru. The treatment method she used was very special, not just medical ninjutsu. Some special treatments were also performed on the wounded man's wounds to reduce the rate of partial blood loss. But obviously, treating the symptoms does not cure the root cause. Anko became more and more anxious. If this continues, it will just make the wounded man struggle for a while longer in front of Shinigami. At this moment, she suddenly heard a gentle voice. "Let me do it." Turning his head, he saw the smiling face of Hyuga Satoru. Satoru, his injuries. After hesitating for a moment, out of trust in Hyuga Satoru, she silently gave up her position. Seeing this scene, the surrounding ninjas all showed a look of surprise, and Shizune also looked at Hyuga Satoru with slight surprise. Although there have been rumors about Hyuga Satoru being the first genius of the new generation, and this time he even defeated Chio in public, medical ninjutsu is a completely different system. Hyuga Satoru can also heal. This couldn't help but make them all curious. The white eyes have been opened, observing the scene inside the injured body. Although it is not possible to be as precise as CT, it is still possible to roughly observe the source of the injury. The palm of his hand slightly passed over the open wound on the surface of the injured person's body, and the Konoha ninjas surrounding him suddenly widened their eyes. Accompanied by a muffled groan from the injured person, the originally hideous open wound suddenly closed up like a zipper. The blood that was still gurgling stopped instantly. "Amazing. How did you do it? Is this medical ninjutsu?" Hyuga Satoru was not disturbed by the exclamations around him, and frowned slightly, thinking about the next step. Stitching the wound to stop bleeding may seem like just a slight swipe of your palm, but it actually involves several steps. First of all, in order to prevent infection, you must first use a weak electromagnetic furnace to sterilize. The amplitude must be well controlled to have a good disinfecting effect on germs without causing too much pain to the injured. The subsequent suturing is very simple. Electromagnetic force is used to make the two sides of the wound show different polarities, and they will automatically stick together like a zipper. It is much more efficient than direct surgical suturing. The external bleeding stopped. Hyuga Satoru began to use electromagnetic force to amplify the biomagnetic field of the injured, thereby feeding back his own life activities and greatly improving his cell repair and metabolism capabilities. Compared with traditional medical treatments like ninjutsu, which accelerates cell division, this ability comes from the organism itself and does not come at the cost of reducing lifespan. Regarding the biomagnetic field, Hyuga Satoru's current ability can only achieve simple interference. If you want complete control, you may have high requirements for electromagnetic power authority. Visible to the naked eye, the face of the young ninja on the stretcher was obviously rosier and his breathing was much calmer. Hyuga Satoru exhaled slightly. In this case, most of the injuries have been treated, leaving only the inside of the body. A lot of internal damage can be seen from Bayan's perspective, and this kind of injury is the biggest trouble. However, it was not difficult for him. He stretched out his left hand and rubbed it inside the clothes a few times, then took out a small black ball. "Pass it to the mouth of the wounded man on the stretcher." "Eat it." The wounded man swallowed silently, thinking of Hyuga's actions just like taking a bath, plus the quality of this small black ball. "Suddenly I had some bad associations. What is this?" Hyuga thought for a while and said, "Stretch your legs and stare at the pill." Stretch your legs and stare at pills. It really doesn't look like something edible. The surrounding ninjas who were watching couldn't help but look weird when they saw this scene. I saw that the wounded man looked much better, and my heart was filled with admiration for Hyuga Satoru, but this sudden appearance of the leg-stretching eyeball looked very similar. The product of some kind of piston movement in the human body. The injured person hesitated for a few moments, gritted his teeth, and swallowed the dark meatball in one gulp. It has a soft entrance and a thin throat. He felt that the moment the black ball entered his throat, it immediately melted and turned into liquid. He didn't know where it went and couldn't help coughing. "Chiba, are you okay?" His companion immediately squatted down and asked anxiously. "Ahem, I'm fine." After the wounded man coughed a few times, he took a deep breath and his red face returned to normal. Hearing this, the companions around him breathed a sigh of relief. Everyone watching couldn't help but feel slightly worried. Could the thing Hyuga Satoru fed the injured really have a therapeutic effect? Unlike the worries of the people around her, Hongdu's eyes were bright and she looked at the wounded on the stretcher with a hint of expectation. Based on her understanding of Hyuga Satoru, the small black ball must be something important, and all she has to do is wait. Hyuga frowned slightly and carefully controlled the movement of the magnetic fluid in the injured person's body. The leg-stretching eye pill is naturally a small ball composed of magnetic fluid. Under the control of his electromagnetic force, as soon as it enters the injured person's body, it immediately transforms into a diligent nano-medical robot. The reason why he chose to let him eat it was because he found that there were a large number of blood vessel injuries near the lung lobes, which caused severe internal bleeding. This is why he keeps coughing up blood every time he talks. Magnetic fluid can enter the wound area most conveniently along the throat and trachea, blocking the damaged blood vessels, thereby alleviating internal bleeding. When the electromagnetic force reached LV3, he injected magnetic fluid into his body and used a clever method to shut down the caged bird. Now that the electromagnetic force is LV4, the ability to control finally is more than a little bit stronger. The magnetic fluids that enter the body of the injured are like heartfelt nano-robots, taking on the important tasks of dredging blood clots, cleaning internal wounds, repairing injuries, etc. After a while, Hyuga let out a long breath. All right. I saw that the injured person on the stretcher was breathing smoothly and his life was stable. Next to her, Hongdu also breathed a sigh of relief and smiled slightly. She knew that Satoru won this battle with Shinigami. Very good. Chiba, you are finally okay. Several companions rushed forward and threw themselves beside the wounded man on the stretcher, crying excitedly. The Konoha ninjas who were watching immediately dissipated their previous doubts about Hyuga Satoru, and all started to admire him with a hint of shock and surprise. I didn't expect Satoru to be so grandmaster in medical ninjutsu. It's incredible. Even if Tsunade-sama is here, I'm afraid she won't be able to treat such a seriously injured person so easily, right? What kind of medical ninjutsu is this? It seems that there is no fluctuation in chakra. Next to her, Shizune hesitated for a moment, then approached Hyuga Satoru and asked tentatively. Satoru, do you want to sell your leg-stretching pills? Our medical team is willing to buy them at a big price. As a medical ninja, she naturally knew that the most difficult thing to deal with for the wounded man was internal bleeding, but not long after swallowing the leg-stretching pills, the injury immediately improved. Compared to the suturing of the previous trauma, this change made her even more frightened. If everyone in Konoha's ninja could have a leg-stretching pill, wouldn't the casualty rate be greatly reduced? This was indeed the case, so she shamelessly approached Hyuga Satoru to buy it. Want to buy leg-stretching pills? ? What kind of weird idea is this? I just picked a random name. No, Hyuga Satoru immediately refused. If you are worried about the price, you can negotiate. Can we add money? Shizune became anxious. Add money? Do I look like someone who is short of money? Good brother Luos Sha still has dozens of tons of my gold stored there. Hyuga Satoru spoke helplessly. It's not that I won't sell it to you, it's because the patent is with me and I am the only one who can use it. Even if I give it to you, you won't be able to use it. Patent can't be used. Although she didn't understand what Hyuga Satoru meant, Shizune also roughly understood that it was impossible for her to buy the leg-stretching pills. He had to give up the idea and walked away silently to treat other wounded people. Hyuga Satoru looked at Anko next to him and asked with a smile. Anko, you have changed so much, and your medical ninjutsu has also improved a lot. If it were Hongdu before, facing this situation, she might be at a loss what to do, but now, the medical ninjas around her have given up, and she is still insisting on treatment. Anko also laughed, with some blood stains left on her face from the treatment process. It was all taught by Mr. Orochimaru. I learned a lot from him. His medical system is completely different from what is taught in school. Hyuga Satoru nodded. Orochimaru's medical system is closer to modern medicine, with detailed anatomy and research on the human body. Satoru, Anko hesitated for a moment, then said, is it really okay not to take out the leg-stretching pill? Unlike Shizune, she knew something about Hyuga's ability and guessed that the so-called leg-stretching pills were some kind of metal balls, so she couldn't help but worry. It's okay, just give him iron supplements. Hyuga said nonchalantly. The magnetic fluid pellets are almost all decomposed with iron. With his ability, they will enter the intestines when they are no longer needed, and most of them will be excreted. A small part is attached to the epithelial cells of the intestinal mucosa and is decomposed into iron atoms by the body's active oxidation reaction, thus greatly improving the opponent's hematopoietic ability and mitigating the damage caused by massive blood loss. The iron in the human body is basically in an ionic state. If Hyuga Satoru wants to control electromagnetic force at the atomic level, he cannot currently achieve it with nanoscale electromagnetic force. Therefore, we can only use this method to improve his hematopoietic ability in disguised form. In his conception, if the electromagnetic force is upgraded to the atomic level, then regular ninjas will deliver food no matter how many. As long as he has a thought, the iron ions in his body will riot uncontrollably and turn into a suicide bomb. By the way, Satoru, I also studied scientific research. Enko suddenly said happily. Scientific research? Why are you studying scientific research? Hyuga asked curiously. Enko looked around, lowered her voice, and whispered, because I learned from teacher Orochimaru that Satoru seems to like scientific research, so I wanted to do some research to see if I can help Satoru in the future. She suddenly laughed. Didn't Satoru say that, as long as I can find the right direction, I can become an excellent ninja? I think scientific research is pretty good. Is that so? Hyuga Satoru nodded. It seems that even if Enko becomes Orochimaru's disciple, her life trajectory will be completely different from that in the original work. In the original work, Enko has never delved into scientific research except Orochimaru's snake system ninjutsu. But now, not only the medical ninjutsu, but also Orochimaru's scientific research abilities have begun to learn. Hyuga Satoru began to wonder what Enko would become in the future. A picture suddenly appeared in his mind. Enko, who was wearing a white coat and black-rimmed glasses, was carefully dissecting the body of a certain Otsutsuki, with a snake-shaped tail slowly wagging behind him. Hyuga Satoru looked around and saw that he had just experienced a battle, and a large number of wounded people were lying on stretchers, waiting for rescue by medical ninjas. But obviously, the manpower of the backup force is simply not enough. That boy was not an exception. There were many other ninjas who also failed to receive effective rescue. In this case, the combat effectiveness of Konoha's troops will be lost in vain. It seems we still need to cure Tsunade's anemia. Hyuga Satoru couldn't help but sigh slightly. There's no way he could switch jobs and become a medical ninja. Even if they help from time to time, without the backup force of the sole figure Tsunade, it will still be difficult to shoulder the heavy responsibility. However, if Tsunade's hemophobia can be alleviated, this situation can be solved. After thinking about it, Hyuga walked up to Shizune, who was treating the wounded, and asked, Shizune, do you know where Tsunade-sama's camp is? Tsunade-sama's camp? Shizune stopped and looked at Hyuga in astonishment. What are you doing with Tsunade-sama? She doesn't like other people to disturb her. Hyuga Satoru took a breath, and said in deep thought, well, I plan to help her treat her anemia. If Tsunade-sama's anemia is cured, the pressure on the medical team will be greatly reduced. It's getting better. Treat hemophobia. Shizune's eyes suddenly widened and she looked at Hyuga Satoru in surprise. Let me tell you, Satoru, Tsunade-sama herself is the best medical ninja in Konoha. Even she can't solve the anemia, are you sure? Hemophobia is still an unsolved problem for the current medical system. Tsunade, known as the medical sage, was in immense pain when she suffered this kind of torture and could not get out of it at all. Shizune secretly worked hard to cure her anemia, so she became more aware of how stubborn Tsunade's anemia was. I can't say for certain, but it's just a hope. Hyuga Satoru thought for a while and said, don't you think highly of me as the injured person before? I've been cured by him. In terms of medical treatment, I have different opinions from the conventional medical system. There is no harm in letting me try. Shizune hesitated. In the past few days, Tsunade has been deliberately avoiding rescue because of her fear of blood. This strange change cannot be concealed at all. The speculation that Tsunade is suffering from anemia has slowly spread among the troops. If Hyuga Satoru can really heal Tsunade, it will definitely be a great thing. After thinking for a while, Shizune breathed out. Nodded. Okay, once this wounded person is healed, I will take you to Tsunade-sama's camp. In front of a tent. Shizune hesitated for a moment, then turned around and said to Hyuga Satoru, who was following. Wait a moment, I'll go in and inform Lady Tsunade. Please. After saying that, Shizune opened the hanging cloth door of Tsunade's tent, poked her head in and asked softly. Tsunade-sama, have you rested? I saw Tsunade sitting on the edge of the bed, her cheeks slightly red, holding a bottle of wine, and the strong smell of alcohol was dissipating. Ah, it's Shizune. Come on, I'll take a rest after I finish drinking this bottle of wine. Tsunade burped and looked at Shizune, who came in with a slightly drunken face. Perhaps because she planned to rest, she wore quite cool clothes, and the huge soft and white thing almost jumped out of the thin vest. Only a coat draped on the back slightly concealed the spring scenery. Tsunade-sama, why are you drinking again? There was a trace of anxiety on Shizune's face, and she said hurriedly. Drinking is not allowed in the camp. If Orochimaru-sama finds out, he might get angry again. Hee. Tsunade burped, poured a large gulp of wine into her mouth, and said disdainfully. So what if he's angry? I'm useless and can't help at all. Tell me, is there another injured person that you can't handle? Silent. Because of hemophobia, Tsunade cannot directly treat the wounded, so once she encounters a seriously injured person, she will come here to ask Tsunade for advice. It seems that her experiences these days have made her even more depressed. This hemophobia will not work unless it is suppressed. Taking a slight breath, Shizune looked at Tsunade seriously and said. Tsunade-sama, didn't I come here to ask you questions? It's Hyuga Satoru. He wants to cure your hemophobia. What? Ahem. Tsunade, who was drinking, coughed several times as if she was choking. He looked at Shizune in surprise. Is he the only one who can cure my hemophobia? Outside the tent, although Hyuga Satoru didn't go in, he roughly heard the conversation between Shizune and Tsunade. It seems that Tsunade's hemophobia has become more serious in the war environment, and her will has become increasingly depressed. He was somewhat glad that he came to Tsunade through Shizune. Otherwise, if you search Tsunade's tent with Byakugan without permission, you may be rejected by Tsunade as soon as you enter. 3 consecutive hits plus a home run. Without hesitation, he directly opened the door of the tent. Tsunade-sama, you should have heard of my name. I think you have been suffering from hemophobia for so long, and you really want to get rid of it, right? Tsunade subconsciously wrapped the coat on her back to cover her chest, and looked up and down at Hyuga Satoru. Are you the rumored double successor of Hyuga? It doesn't look like you've grown anything weird. Hyuga Satoru's mouth twitched slightly. Does it mean that the first double-blood successor in the history of Hyuga has to have more parts than others? What is this idea? Tsunade-sama, I think we should focus on treating hemophobia. Hyuga Satoru couldn't help but want to bring the topic back. Why should I believe you? Tsunade stared at Hyuga Satoru suspiciously. He is the best medical ninja in Konoha and even the entire ninja world, and even he has a stubborn disease that he can't do anything about. Is there anything Hyuga can do about this brat who doesn't have all his hair? Moreover, she had heard all the recent rumors in the camp. Although he did not directly participate in the frontal battlefield, he thought that Chio, his mortal enemy who had been fighting with him for so many years, was controlled by his 10 puppets. I couldn't help but shudder. What kind of bad taste does this kid have? Could it be that under the guise of treating hemophobia, you have any special thoughts about me? Tsunade-sama, please let Satoru give it a try. Next to her, Shizune couldn't help but said. Satoru's medical ninjutsu is very unique. He had cured a seriously injured patient earlier, and the medical ninjutsu he used was even something I couldn't see through. Yeah, Tsunade looked at Hyuga Satoru in surprise. Shizune's medical ability was inherited from her. Since even Shizune can't see through him, it means that Hyuga Satoru really has a lot of skills. However, it's not enough. She said coldly, even if you have some knowledge in medical treatment, as a medical ninja, I know very well the consequences of letting others treat you at will. If there's nothing else, I'm going to take a rest, please come back. At this moment, Hyuga Satoru, who had been silent all this time, suddenly spoke tentatively. Tsunade-sama, you don't want Shizune to work so hard, right? There are so many wounded people in Konoha outside. Tsunade-sama, you don't want to see them die in vain, right? Tsunade-sama, you are the medical master of Konoha. You don't want this name to be spurned by countless people, right? Your dead boyfriend Kato-dan and your brother Naoki, Tsunade-sama, you don't want them to be disappointed for you in the Pure Land. Tsunade-sama, you don't want to. Hyuga Satoru directly turned on the Tsunade-sama, you don't want to 3 consecutive mode, and continued to escape several times. Tsunade's expression changed from cold and decisive at the beginning, to slight hesitation, to a look of struggle, and finally to resignation. Hyuga Satoru's several, you don't want to, were like sugar-coated bullets, directly hitting the softest depths of Tsunade's heart. Bit by bit, destroying her defense. Satoru, so awesome. Shizune couldn't help but admire Chunin. She had seen Tsunade's performance. She didn't expect that Hyuga Satoru's few words would actually make Tsunade put down her guard. Okay, Hyuga brat, I promise to let you give it a try. Tsunade said with a helpless look. When the conversation changed, she stared at Hyuga Satoru slightly coldly. But, how do you know so clearly about my personal affairs? Let's not talk about the blood fear. It has been spread in the camp in the past few days, but she has never mentioned her brothers Naoki and Kato-dan to other people. How did Hyuga Satoru know so well? Master Orochimaru told me. In fact, he has always been very concerned about your hemophobia. After thinking about it, Hyuga decided to put the blame on Orochimaru. Without him, he is the most suitable candidate. Even if Tsunade goes to ask and learns that it was him who said it, Orochimaru will directly take the blame. Fine. Tsunade's face softened a bit and she breathed a sigh of relief. Hurry up, I'm still in a hurry to go to bed. By the way, it won't cause bleeding, right? Tsunade stared at Hyuga Satoru suspiciously. Well, Hyuga Satoru swallowed. Probably not. That's good. Tsunade breathed a sigh of relief. As long as there is no bleeding, otherwise her hemophobia may break out on the spot, and any treatment will be in vain. Hyuga Satoru took a deep breath and glanced at Shizune beside him without leaving any trace, as if he had no intention of leaving. Trouble, he cursed in his heart, and his expression gradually became serious. Hemophobia, after all, is a psychological disease. In his previous life, in addition to specializing in science, he also had a good interest in psychology. I can't say Grandmaster, but I have also taken the relevant certification as a psychotherapist. Of course, it is not realistic to rely on this business to get a job. But for the current Tsunade, it is quite useful. There has never been a subject of mental health education in the ninja world. If you think about it, you will know that for 5 or 6-year-old children, they are all forced to fight on the battlefield. The psychological problems of the people in the ninja world are so serious. All kinds of twisted values and brainwashing. When Hyuga Satoru first traveled through time, it took a lot of effort to get used to it. Tsunade-sama, please treat yourself as a patient who needs treatment, and do not resist my guidance. Hyuga Satoru said seriously. If the other party resists psychological counseling, the effect will be very poor. Fine, Tsunade pouted. This kid is so annoying. He really thinks he is a doctor. Forget it, I agreed to the other party after all. Next, Hyuga Satoru began to provide verbal guidance and hints, and carried out psychological guidance and treatment based on the knowledge he had mastered. The effect is surprisingly good. Tsunade didn't feel anything at first, but then she fell into it. The tense spirit gradually relaxed. Every word Hyuga Satoru seems to have some kind of special magic power. It turned into a long tentacle and penetrated deep into Tsunade's body, caressing her tired body and soothing her fragile soul. It didn't take long. Then a soft snore was heard. Tsunade fell asleep. Next to her, Shizune was also shocked. When she discovered that Hyuga Satoru's treatment was really effective, she began to hurriedly write down every step of Hyuga Satoru's treatment. This was an extremely valuable asset for a medical ninja. Hyuga Satoru's treatment method seemed to open a door in her mind and show her a new world. So there is such a medical method. It does not use yang-style chakra to stimulate the body, but uses gentle words to guide and express the patient's mind. Amazing. Shizune's eyes were bright and her breathing was a little quick. Hyuga glanced at her without leaving any trace. He had noticed Shizune's little moves a long time ago, so of course, it didn't matter. If Shizune can really make achievements in psychology, I am afraid it will greatly promote the development of the medical system in the entire ninja world. From the perspective of Hyuga Satoru's 21st century thinking, the current development of the ninja world is too abnormal, especially the medical system. Ninjutsu is a series of medical treatments developed for physical recovery, almost exclusively for combat purposes. There is almost no research done on mental health. This is probably why Uchiha has so many problem boys. Of course, in addition to his psychological foundation, the ability of the electromagnetic force system also played a big role in why he was able to cure Tsunade's hemophobia so effectively. While providing verbal guidance, Hyuga Satoru also modulated the brain magnetic field of Tsunade's brain to a certain extent, especially the deep limbic system located in the center of the brain. A large number of emotional memories are stored here, including a large number of traumatic emotional memories. Brain magnetic field mediation at this location can greatly alleviate Tsunade's self-blame and anxiety. Hyuga Go glanced at Shizune, who was recalling the treatment steps next to him. "Come here and help me." Only then did Shizune react. Oh, he hurriedly walked to Hyuga Satoru and supported Tsunade, who was already asleep. Perhaps she was too asleep and had lost awareness of the outside world. When the two of them helped her to the bed, the coat on her back slipped off, revealing a vast expanse of spring color. The huge, soft, snow-white thing seemed unable to withstand the constraints of the thin fabric, and longed to breathe free air. As the two of them helped her onto the bed, she rocked back and forth, showing her amazing elasticity. Hyuga Satoru swallowed silently. Fortunately, Shizune didn't look strange. Tsunade's anemia improved, and she also found a new medical direction. She was full of gratitude to Hyuga Satoru. He didn't even notice his strange changes. Hyuga Satoru couldn't help but sigh slightly. "I also read a lot of Tsunade's books in my previous life. I thought I had a pretty good understanding of her body structure, but now it seems I was careless. The real person and the book are still different after all. Tsunade's prison, Jiraiya's vacation, Naruto's vacation." Lo exploded. Hyuga couldn't help but click his tongue. After Shizune covered herself with the quilt, she reluctantly moved her eyes away from Tsunade. "Consider it my reward for treating your hemophobia." The corners of his mouth curled up slightly. Shizune wiped the sweat from her forehead and smiled at Hyuga Satoru. "Satoru, thank you so much this time. It seems that Tsunade-sama's hemophobia has been relieved a lot. I didn't expect that in addition to being powerful, Satoru also has such high attainments in medical treatment." Hyuga thought for a while and said, "This is the first treatment. I don't know if the effect is good or not. When Tsunade-sama wakes up, you can ask her. If possible, I will come a few more times in the future." "Really?" Shizune became excited. "Satoru, thank you very much. Hyuga Satoru can be treated several times more, which means that Tsunade recovers faster and he can learn more about that magical treatment method. It is truly an honor for the village to have a ninja like Satoru." Shizune couldn't help but sigh. Chapter 71. Completely defeat Hyuga Satoru. The following few days, Hyuga Satoru went to Tsunade's camp several times. Under his psychological treatment and electromagnetic brain magnetic field regulation, Tsunade felt great. Strictly speaking, Tsunade's hemophobia is a stress-induced psychological disorder. She can't forgive herself for watching her brother and lover die. Through scientific psychological counseling and the adjustment of the brain magnetic field in the part of the brain that manages traumatic memories, she slowly came out of the shadows. Later, he could even take the initiative to treat the injured whose bleeding was not that severe. Until one morning, Tsunade walked out of the camp for the first time and came to a stretcher where the wounded were lying. He smiled, his palms filled with a faint green light, and he placed them on the man's chest. In the eyes of countless pairs of expectant eyes, the injury was visibly recovered. In an instant, the camp was boiling. "Who said Tsunade-sama is useless? Stand up for me." "Great, Tsunade-sama has finally recovered. We are all saved." Cheers like this, like surges, kept emerging in the camp. In a corner of the crowd, Orochimaru stood in the shadows, leaning slightly against the tent, looking at Hyuga Satoru, who was also standing in the corner with a slight smile. "Satoru, this guy brings me new surprises every time." The day after Hyuga Satoru went to Tsunade's camp, he had already received the information. Originally, he was skeptical about Hyuga Satoru's ability to heal Tsunade, but now, he was only left with a strong sense of surprise. On the other side, Hyuga Satoru seemed to notice it and raised his eyebrows slightly at him. Different from the joy in the Konoha camp, at this moment, the atmosphere in the Sand Shinobi camp was quite depressing. There is also a hint of weirdness. Have you seen it? Chio-sama's dance. I was nearby and saw it with my own eyes. I didn't expect Chio-sama to dance so, tisk tisk. Yes, still with my own puppet. Sand Shinobi looked around carefully and whispered. I heard that Chio-sama was the most beautiful woman in Sunagaku village when she was young. If you tell me this, I won't feel sleepy anymore. The surrounding Sand Shinobi suddenly became interested and sat quietly together. No wonder Chio-sama dances so gracefully. Please tell me more carefully. I have a friend who really wants to know more. In the command camp, the senior executives of Sand Shinobi at the long table looked very ugly. They wanted to say something, but they could only sigh. These days, the remaining top brass of the Sunagaku force have gathered together for meetings more than once. Discussing next steps, Chio, who was sitting at the top of the long table, kept his head lowered and said nothing. The hands buried under the long table were grasping the lapels of his clothes, trembling slightly. The eyes of the other Sand Shinobi could not help but glance at Chio. If it had been before, Chio might have already given a deep command and led the Sand Shinobi to come up with several countermeasures. But now, since the meeting has been held, Chio has almost said nothing. No wonder, Sand Shinobi senior executives couldn't help but sigh slightly. After all, in front of so many people, even an old ninja like Chio, who has been on the battlefield for many years, will probably suffer great psychological trauma. And during this period of time, the rumors about Chio never stopped in the camp. Even though they had issued strict orders, they still could not stop this trend. Thinking of this, these senior executives couldn't help but grit their teeth. Kuso, what a vicious Hyuga brat. Chio, the strongest puppet master in the village, has actually, already. Do you have any ideas about the next direction? Above the long table, Luos Sha spoke in a deep voice, breaking the silence. The senior management of Sand Shinobi looked at each other strangely, but neither of them said a word. These days, in addition to rumors about Chio, panic is also spreading in the camp. That terrifying Hyuga ninja is almost completely capable of defeating the Sand Shinobi. The puppet master's army was almost wiped out, and he died in frustration at the hands of his own puppets. Even Chio, the strongest puppet master, can only become his plaything. Even if one hates such an enemy to the core, the thought of fighting with him still gives him a headache. You guys, don't you have any ideas? Luos Sha repeated it again. Finally, someone broke the silence and spoke solemnly to Luos Sha. Master Cage, with all due respect, the current predicament of Sunagaku village is almost all caused by that Hyuga ninja. His magnet-style ability is very special. Not only can he control shurikens and kunai, he can even control puppets. With this capability, if we continue to wage war, I'm afraid it will be very troublesome. However, if you, Cage-sama, can defeat the opponent, we may not have no chance of winning. Luos Sha took a breath, nodded, and shouted in a deep voice. That Hyuga ninja, according to the available information, seems to be the first double-blooded ninja in the history of Konoha's Hyuga clan. The magnet-style ability has a strong ability to manipulate specific metals. It is precisely because of this that Chio was defeated, but the corners of his mouth were slightly raised, showing a strong sense of confidence in his words. In terms of magnet style, there is no ninja in the current ninja world who is more grandmaster than me. Since the current predicament is happening to him, I will personally take action to solve him. This is his confidence as the Cage of the 4th generation, one of the 5 most powerful cages in the ninja world. With Cage-sama's words, we can rest assured. Cage-sama is also a magnet-style ninja. Come to think of it, that Hyuga brat is only more than 10 years old, so he cannot be Cage-sama's opponent. Sand Shinobi hesitated for a moment and said, if you, Cage, want to free up your hands to deal with that Hyuga ninja, we will definitely be weaker than Konoha in terms of high-end combat power. I'm afraid. Rest assured. Luos Sha nodded and exhaled. After preparing for so long, it's time for One Tail to come on stage. Hearing this, everyone around Sand Shinobi was shocked. Are you going to use the tailed beast? The power of the tailed beast is definitely not something that mortals can compete with. It's time for Konoha to see the terrifying power of one tail. Seeing the morale around him gradually increasing, Luos Sha breathed a sigh of relief and smiled. During the Warring States period, One Tail had been living in the desert area and was captured and sealed by the ancestors of Sand Hidden Village. After so many years of development, it can be said that it has considerable experience in training tailed beasts. Even the magnet style is imitated and developed from One Tail. On the other hand, on the Konoha side, due to the special nature of 9 tails, the strongest tailed beasts are almost unable to be used. Konoha has never seen Konoha let go of 9 tails on the battlefield. One Tail's terrifying strength is enough to bridge all gaps. Luos Sha's eyes showed coldness. That Hyuga brat, I must kill him this time. Killed so many sand shinobi, even Chio. In addition, that vague sense of familiarity also made him full of curiosity about Hyuga Satoru. In any case, his murderous intention towards Hyuga Satoru has reached the extreme level. After exhaling a breath, Luos Sha's light flashed and he ordered in a deep voice. After passing the order, the troops will immediately enter a state of preparation for war. 3 days later, we will counterattack the Konoha camp. In addition, he took a breath and his eyes flickered. Send someone to ask Fenfu to come over. Konoha tent. Orochimaru stared at Hyuga Satoru with bright eyes. Woojun, it seems that I still underestimated you. I didn't expect you to have such high attainments in medical treatment. These days, Tsunade seems to have completely gotten rid of the torture of hemophobia. Not only did he begin to personally treat the wounded, he even petitioned him to actively participate in the frontline battlefield. He still remembered Tsunade's heroic tone. After holding it in for so long, I can finally show off my skills. Orochimaru, if you dare to stop me from going to the battlefield, I will kill you first. Having been a companion for so long, Orochimaru understands even more clearly that this state is Tsunade's strongest state. The previous frustrations turned into motivation to vent at this moment. I want to show off my skills in the war and announce to the world, I am back. It was precisely because of this that he looked at Hyuga Satoru in such shock. I still don't understand, Wu-kun, how did you cure Tsunade's anemia? He has long been aware of the stubbornness of hemophobia. In the early days, he even thought of some treatment methods, but all to no avail. Orochimaru, don't limit your vision to the physical body. In fact, the power of the mind is a direction more worthy of development. Hyuga Satoru looked at Orochimaru deeply and replied in a pretentious manner. Body, mind. Orochimaru looked at Hyuga Satoru in shock. That's all I can say. I understand everything I know. The rest depends on your understanding. Hyuga rolled his eyes at him, then walked out of the tent without stopping. At this time, Orochimaru has been obsessed with the study of the body, but has ignored the weaknesses of the soul. Since Orochimaru no longer poses a threat to him, he doesn't mind giving some advice. After all, Orochimaru also contributed a lot when he solved the shackles of the caged bird. As for whether Orochimaru can think of it, that has nothing to do with him. Looking at his back, Orochimaru thought silently. Hyuga Satoru, who returned to his tent, hadn't rested long when he suddenly heard a knock on the door. Who will it be at this time? Hyuga Satoru couldn't help but become curious. Could it be that Uchiha Rin knew that he was lonely and came here specially? With this idea in mind, he pushed gate of opening. What came into view were 3 unfamiliar figures. It's strange, but it's not particularly strange. At least, those white pupils were still very familiar to him. Same race. 3 ninjas from the Hyuga clan. What's matter? Hyuga Satoru gate of opening asked straightforwardly. The leader groaned and said, let me introduce myself first. My name is Hyuga Fire Formation, and I am a ninja from the clan. Oh, Hyuga Satoru responded casually. He was not surprised. Although they were wearing forehead protectors, he could guess it when he saw the 2 Hyuga ninjas behind him looking like a loser. Hyuga Fire Array was a little dissatisfied with Hyuga Satoru's casual answer, showing a slightly displeased look. I am from the Zong family, I believe you also know the meaning. Oh, another one-word reply. Hyuga Fire Array took a slight breath, suppressed the anger in his heart, and said. I know you are Hyuga's genius, but I hope you can understand that everything you have now was given by the Zong family. Oh, Hyuga was speechless for a moment, like a heavy punch hitting cotton, and the words he had prepared were stuck in his throat, and he didn't know how to speak. The two branch house guards behind him couldn't stand it anymore and said quickly, Satoru, we are all branch houses, and our first mission should be to protect the clan. Master Huo-gen is the clan, and swords have no eyes on the battlefield. You are very strong, and magnet style can defend against Sand Shinobi's sneak attack, so we are here. So you came here to ask me to protect him? Hyuga Satoru interrupted the branch house's words and raised his eyebrows slightly. Yes, seeing that Hyuga Satoru said it directly, the branch house guard took over. Your medical ninjutsu is also quite good. Recently, rumors have been circulating in the camp that you cured Lady Tsunade. I think that with you protecting Lady Fire, everything will be safe. Hehe. Hyuga Satoru was disdainful. This is really Hyuga's usual style. Send the clan to the battlefield to brush up your resume, and the branch house will follow behind to die. If anything goes wrong with the clan, the branch house will be doomed. Seeing that Hyuga Satoru didn't speak, the branch house couldn't help but said, Woo, it is the branch house's duty to protect the Zong family. Don't forget it. Ah, yes, yes. Question mark, question mark, question mark. The branch house was stunned, and then a look of anger appeared on his face. Woo, this is not an order from Lord Huojun, it is an order from the clan leader himself. Every clan member is precious to the family. Ah, yes, yes. Satoru, I know you are a genius and have your own arrogance, but you have to understand that as a member of the Hyuga clan, you must. Ah, yes, yes. The branch house was stunned, and the words he had prepared were stuck in his throat. He could only hold back his anger and gritted his teeth slightly. Woo, aren't you afraid of being punished by the clan leader? Enough. Hyuga Fire Array raised his hand and stopped the two branch houses behind him who wanted to get angry. He took a deep breath and suppressed the anger in his heart. The long-term upbringing of the Hyuga clan allowed him to maintain his demeanor and stared at Hyuga Satoru with a cold look. Since you insist on doing this, I won't force it. I hope you can do it for yourself. While several people were arguing, many Konoha ninjas had come out of the surrounding camps to watch. If the stalemate continued, they would only lose the face of the Hyuga clan. Using a caged bird, Hyuga Satoru is the popular person around Orochimaru, and he doesn't want to offend Orochimaru head-on. Punishing Hyuga Satoru in front of so many ninjas is equivalent to making a grudge against Orochimaru. However, as a Zong family, wouldn't it be easy to deal with a branch house secretly? Looking at the leaving figures of the three people in the Hyuga fire formation, Hyuga Satoru shook his head secretly. Hyuga, after all, is still the rotten Hyuga. The shackles on his forehead have been opened, so naturally he will not be afraid of the Zong family. He also knew that the Hyuga fire formation did not dare to use the caged bird curse seal in public. Otherwise, maybe a few days later, it will disappear due to some special mission and become a very satisfying collection for Orochimaru. It seems that after this war is over, the Hyuga clan will be reformed. Hyuga Satoru's eyes flashed. Branch house. It was a humiliating mark. It is also a mark that countless Hyuga ninjas want to get rid of. But judging from the performance of the two branch house guards, they should be loyal to the Zong family. Perhaps, it is also time to collect information within the family, distinguish between pro-clan factions and anti-clan factions, and prepare for future changes. Hyuga Satoru already has a plan in mind. His eyes flickered, as if he had seen the long-term future. The Zong family must be suppressed, and it will not work if it is not suppressed. Later, he led the entire Hyuga to emancipate his mind and formulate guidelines. A strong nation through science and technology, a strong nation through innovation. Take the path of Marxism led by science. Woojun, I heard that you had a conflict with the Zong family in the camp yesterday. Little things. Orochimaru laughed hoarsely. If Mr. Wu needs it, I can make them disappear. Don't worry, no one will notice. This is a time of war, and accidents are normal. Hyuga Satoru looked at him calmly. No, Orochimaru, I have my own plans. Really? Orochimaru smiled hoarsely. Hyuga Satoru's eyes flickered without leaving any trace. As his strength and abilities continued to be revealed, Orochimaru's attitude was also changing. In the past, He treated himself as a kind of investment and research, but now, he feels that he is the leader. While the two were chatting, the door of the camp was suddenly pushed open. Lord Orochimaru, the scouts have discovered the attack of the Sand Shinobi troops. Really? How many ninjas did they send? Orochimaru asked hoarsely. About 3,000 people, and the figures of Rasa and Chio were discovered. Yeah, Orochimaru suddenly smiled hoarsely. I thought about the rumors in the camp. Does Chio still have the courage to go to the battlefield? He is indeed a ninja who was famous in the ninja world during World War II. He suddenly looked at Hyuga Satoru strangely. What do you seem to be thinking about? Are you thinking about what dance to ask Chio to dance this time? Planning on changing your taste? Hyuga Satoru smiled helplessly. Lord Orochimaru, the top priority is to gather troops to counterattack. Since Rasa dares to take the initiative to attack, she must be prepared. 2. Orochimaru took a breath, his face became serious, and he ordered in a deep voice. In the war between the two major ninja village troops, except for the use of roundabout sneak attack tactics by small-scale elite troops, it was almost impossible to avoid the detection of scouts from both sides. Not long after the large forces on Rasa's side set off for the expedition, the Konoha troops had already received information. The ninja troops quickly assembled and faced off in a mighty battle. It was still the same hilly place from the previous battle. There were still traces of the release of ninjutsu from both sides on the ground. Some of the corpses that Sand Shinobi had not taken away in time to retreat were still lying there. Luos Sha took a deep breath and suppressed the humiliation and anger in her heart. This battle, no matter what, everyone must win. Sunagakur village is not as good as Konoha in terms of resource reserves and hematopoietic ability. The war has been going on so far, and the village has almost all its elites. Only by becoming the victorious party can we gain more bargaining chips when signing the armistice agreement. Only in this way can the fourth generation case cage position that I just took can be stable. Thinking of this, he glanced slightly at an old man behind him. The man seemed to be a monk, wearing cassocks, which was in sharp contrast to the stern ninja troops around him. Fengfu, how is Shukaku's situation? Still just as anxious. There was no emotion in Fenfu's tone. Luos Sha frowned slightly. Fengfu, I know you don't like killing, but this is war and we have no choice. The future of the village rests with you. Luos Sha looked deeply at Fenfu. A struggling look appeared on Fenfu's face, but soon it returned to its previous calm appearance. I know, when the time is right, I will release Shukaku. Very good. The corners of Luos Sha's mouth raised slightly. The torrents of green and yellow collided on the hills. It started almost exactly the same as the previous battle. Large-scale wind escape and fire style collided with each other, and finally turned into scattered sparks falling. Sand Shinobi and Konoha ninjas fought again. It's different from before. During the battle, I would always hear a few smiling taunts from Konoha ninjas from time to time. Your village's Kujizuke Chio is great. Kuso, Konoha fools. How dare you humiliate us like this? The Sand Shinobi with red eyes got on top and attacked like crazy. The rules lost under the control of anger were gradually defeated by the Konoha ninjas. Even Sand Shinobi Jonin, who was experienced in combat, couldn't help but breathe a little heavier when he encountered this kind of ridicule. In the battle of life and death, this tiny mistake may cost your life. Although the number of Sand Shinobi is still greater than that of Konoha, the balance of victory seems to be tilting towards Konoha. Where did Luos Sha hide? After killing the surrounding Sand Shinobi Jonin, Orochimaru couldn't help but turn his snake eyes slightly, searching for traces of Rasa on the battlefield. Rasa's ninjutsu is very special, and it stands to reason that as long as it is used, it will be easily discovered. He hasn't shown up yet, so I'm afraid he has some conspiracy. Orochimaru had a vague guess in his mind. But he was not panicked, or in other words, Hyuga Satoru's absolute restraint on Sunagakur's abilities was enough to support his confidence. At this moment, a cold drink came. Your opponent is me. Appearing at the same time as the voice, was a familiar figure in her 10 big puppets. Chio. He was staring coldly at Orochimaru. He also controls 10 puppets belonging to the Chikamatsu 10 people. Haha, I didn't expect it to be Chio. Why? Don't you plan to seek revenge from Satoru? Orochimaru laughed hoarsely. Chio's face stiffened. Gritting his teeth slightly, Orochimaru, I didn't expect you to be able to use your words. Haha, I just find it interesting. You are still controlling these 10 puppets. Aren't you afraid of doing it again? Are you being controlled by the puppets in turn? Chio took a deep breath, knowing that she must not get angry. This is related to whether you can take revenge. Rasa is hiding in the Sand Shinobi troops and is searching for traces of Hyuga Satoru. On Orochimaru's side, he can only stop him by himself. As for Namikaze Minato, Hayakura can deal with it. This pair of pretty boys and sisters have become old rivals in this war. After all, after going through hundreds of battles, large and small, Chio was rich in experience and immediately restrained his emotions. The 10 puppets suddenly moved, trying to surround Orochimaru. After going back last time, she made a second transformation of the puppet. Almost all the metals that can be replaced have been replaced. Orochimaru seemed to have no intention of fighting. He jumped back and jumped out of the circle of puppets. Almost at the same time, a figure suddenly fell, knocking away all the attacking puppets. A familiar voice came from the turbulent dust, causing Chio's pupils to shrink slightly. Chio, you seem to have forgotten me. The dust dispersed, and Tsunade stood proudly, raising her eyebrows at Chio. I heard that your dancing is great. Tsunade. Chio gritted his teeth and made a squeaking sound. You are not. Is the intelligence wrong? You can't say it's wrong. Tsunade dusted off the dust on her sleeves. It can only be said that Hyuga Satoru's skills are too good. She smiled at Chio. Actually, I didn't expect that he would already have such high attainments in medical treatment at such a young age. It's him again. Chio felt as if his heart was being grasped by something. The eyes are slightly red. Gritting his teeth. That beast. The angry Chio controlled the puppet and chopped it off. Tsunade made a deft leap. The moment it fell, a heavy punch hit the ground. Along with the roar, the ground suddenly cracked, and a huge boulder lifted up, and Tsunade kicked it towards the puppet. The puppet opened its blue chakra shield and barely blocked the blow. However, the huge impact still caused several parts to fly away, and the body twitched a few times. Chio couldn't help but grit his teeth slightly. Because of Hyuga Satoru's threat, he had to replace almost all the metal in the puppet, including the weapons and joint links. This leads to the strength of the puppet has been greatly reduced. If it were before, blocking Tsunade's attack of this level would not cause damage to the body at all, but now, the puppet that blocked the boulder attack has been mostly disabled. Tsunade also noticed this scene. The corners of his mouth were slightly raised. It seems that Chio is also unable to display her true strength. To be precise, her hemophobia has not yet completely recovered. But with Hyuga Satoru's treatment and independent psychological suggestion, he was able to fight basically unaffected. It will take some time to adjust before you can reach your full potential. But it seems to be enough. Chio is now useless. Taking a slight breath, she raised her eyebrows and mocked Chio. Chio, can you perform it again? I didn't see it then. A sharp-toothed little girl. Chio's eyes turned red. He gritted his teeth slightly, and manipulated the puppet to hit the mountain with one blow. The other side. Good brother Rasa is still searching for traces of Hyuga Satoru. Hidden in the ordinary sand shinobi, followed by several sentient ninjas. Only out of necessity did he throw out a few sand gold attacks. Hidden yourself as much as possible and wanted to wait and see. Only, why haven't you found him yet? Luos Sha frowned. I couldn't help but feel anxious. He knew very well that the key to winning or losing this war was the showdown between him and Hyuga Satoru. For this reason, he even gave up the opportunity to attack on a large scale, just to seize the opportunity and solve Hyuga Satoru most effectively. However, Hyuga Satoru seems to have discovered his intention. No trace has ever been revealed. Haven't you found it yet? He shouted to the sentient ninja behind him. No, if he is nearby, there is no way he can escape our sensory detection. The perceptive ninja had a few drops of sweat on his forehead. It's just, we have explored most of the battlefield and found no trace of him. Kusu, that evil Hyuga brat. Luos Sha gritted her teeth and looked quite ugly. In order to hunt Hyuga Satoru's plan, he can hardly take action on a large scale. On the other side, Orochimaru freed up his hand and spat out a huge swarm of snakes, killing the regular sand shinobi. The battle was almost one-sided. It seems that Chio has failed. We can no longer place hope on her. Luos Sha took a deep breath, her eyes showing coldness. Give me the order to execute the tailed beast release plan. The several sensory ninjas behind them were sweating on their foreheads. They knew that the matter was of great importance and did not dare to delay it at all. Yes, a sensing ninja immediately closed his eyes and spread the information to the other side of the battlefield. Among the Jinchuriki team who had been prepared for a long time, Master Kazekage has given the order. A sensory ninja suddenly opened his eyes. Prepare to release the tailed beast. So fast. That's good, we're almost ready. In the team, an elite Jonin looked at Fenfu and whispered slightly. I'm sorry, Master Fenfu. I understand, this is the fate of the Jinchuriki. The old-looking monk clasped his hands together, as calm as water, as if something trivial was waiting for him next. Voluntarily becoming the container of one tail, he has stayed in the temple of Sunagaku village for decades. I already knew that this was a destined day. Share the blessings without complaint. All eyes were on him. The lineup of this team is quite luxurious, with a large number of members from the sealing class and the sensing class. The two leaders of the team are both elite Jonin. The mission has only one goal. Throw the tailed beast into the battlefield. The seal class ninja opens Shikai to remove the seal in Fenfu's body. Little by little, one tail's violent chakra began to emerge from Fenfu. He clasped his hands together and just stared at the battlefield calmly. Blood, corpses, screams, reflected in his pupils. If the war can be ended as soon as possible, some killings can be reduced. He sighed silently in his heart. One tail's violent chakra completely engulfed him. The sound of high-pitched, crazy laughter. Ha ha ha, I am free. Sand Shinobi in the team swallowed a mouthful of saliva. Even though he was prepared, he still felt palpitated by this terrifying chakra. Run, one tail is about to wake up. If we stay here, we will become its target too. Not daring to stop at all, the group of Sand Shinobi ran away like crazy. Throw your blessings on the battlefield. The recovery of the tailed beast is the follow-up plan, and the top priority now is to escape from here. A huge shadow appeared out of thin air, covering a large number of ninjas on the battlefield, and they all showed a trace of doubt. When he turned around, his pupils suddenly shrank and cold sweat dripped from his forehead. What is that? Oh my god, it's so big. It's a tailed beast. Did Sunagaku village use a tailed beast? Fear spread among the Konoha ninja almost instantly. I am free. Ha ha ha, you all must die. Shukaku's unique sharp voice sounded, with a hint of madness and joy. He didn't use ninjutsu, but the huge tail behind him swept suddenly, like an earthquake, and the ground shook. The wave rolled up and swallowed up a large number of Konoha ninjas, as well as some Sand Shinobi who had no time to escape. Far away, seeing this scene, Luos Sha's eyes showed a hint of joy. Tailed beasts attack indiscriminately, and as long as Konoha's losses are greater than theirs, they gain. What's more, the one tail was placed on the flank of the Konoha forces, and Sand Shinobi only occupied a small part. If this continues, victory is already doomed. The corners of Luos Sha's mouth raised slightly. Wind escape. Practice blank bullets. With sharp laughter, Shukaku suddenly slapped his round belly, and huge air cannons hit the battlefield one after another. A large number of ninjas were torn apart by the terrifying force, and blood flowed freely. Is this the power of tailed beasts? Just one ninjutsu can cause a disaster like a natural disaster. Far away, there were Konoha ninjas who stared blankly at this scene. Die, 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 let's all die, ha 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 ha. Accompanied by Shukaku's sharp and maniacal laughter, countless rounds of blank ammunition were spit out from his mouth and raked across the battlefield. Its location seemed to have become a vacuum zone, and a large number of ninjas fled in panic. That thick and outrageous tail. With just a few slight sweeps, countless ninjas were crushed to pieces. Shukaku chuckled. Only killing can make it feel happy. The life of a tailed beast is so simple and boring. Lord Orochimaru, tailed beasts have been released in Sunagaku village. Flank, has been captured by one tail. The sensing ninja hurriedly transmitted the information. I see. Orochimaru's voice was as cold as ice, staring at the huge figure that suddenly appeared on the other side of the battlefield. The huge body of the tailed beast can be clearly seen even here. Trouble, I didn't expect to use the tailed beast, Tsunade village. Orochimaru's face looked a little ugly. Do you want to summon all the snakes? Relying on its power, it should be able to barely contain one tail. But that stingy guy, if he knew that he was going to deal with the tailed beast, he would probably ask for at least 500 human sacrifices. Maybe even the ninjas of Konoha would use it as food. Trouble. Orochimaru hesitated. Shukaku smiled sharply, venting the anger he had been imprisoned for so many years. It opened its mouth and breathed out the terrifying wind escape chakra, like a hurricane, devouring everything on the battlefield. Use fire style to resist. On Konoha's side, ninjas have already organized themselves to resist One-Tail's attack. Fire style. Fire bomb. Fire style. Dragon flame jutsu. Fire style. Great fireball jutsu. 5 flowers 8 gates. Fire style ninjutsu was released from the mouths of the Konoha ninjas, condensing into a huge surge of flames. Facing the hurricane coming from Shukaku's mouth. Fire style restrains wind escape. But there is a huge gap between the tailed beast's terrifying size and chakra. The stream of fire was continuously shattered. The leader, Jonin, looked ugly. Suddenly, his eyes flashed, and he saw a thin figure with long black hair running forward. Before he could stop him, he heard a cold drink. Fire style. Great fire extinguishes. Terrifying flames spurted out of her mouth. It turned into a huge surge of flames and faced the hurricane. This level of fire style. Jonin's eyelids twitched. Uchiha's ninja. He looks no more than 10 years old. It's really scary. Behind him, a large number of Konoha ninjas reacted. Leap forward, quickly seal, and release another wave of fire style. Shukaku's attack was blocked. The flames burned its body, like the bite of ants. Asshole. It screamed sharply, as if it was angry that its attack was blocked by a group of ants. Uchiha Rin also wanted to use Haohuo to extinguish it, but the large consumption of chakra made her suddenly dizzy and staggered slightly. A strong support came from behind, catching her firmly. You've done a great job, Rin. Leave the rest to me. Uchiha Rin turned around, a pair of pure white eyes looking at her with a smile. Woo, is it because you have been practicing in the family during this period? I didn't know your fire style was so strong. There are still many things you don't know. Uchiha Rin tilted her head proudly. Shukaku was angry. You stinking human being, go to hell. The outrageously big yellow tail was swatted down hard like a mosquito, swatting away a bunch of Konoha ninjas. Quick, use Earth style to stop it from moving. Earth style. Earth flow castle wall. Earth walls rose from the ground. Then he was trampled to pieces. Shukaku's sharp roar seemed to show off his power. A natural disaster level tailed beast, can we really compete with it? It's too strong, it's no match for you. Fear and powerlessness spread among the Konoha ninjas. At this moment, they suddenly heard a sneer. All fear comes from insufficient firepower. He looked over in astonishment, accompanied by a bang 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 sound. A burst of white mist suddenly appeared around Hyuga Satoru, and a bunch of shadow clones suddenly appeared. Multiple shadow clone. You can actually use this technique, but it's useless. Tailed beasts cannot be defeated by more people. At this moment, the white fog completely dissipated, and the shadow clone appeared together. There are also a lot of black metal barrels. Several of them had such huge calibers that the surrounding Konoha ninjas couldn't help but twitch their eyes. What is this stuff? The leading shadow clone roared loudly. 2nd Battalion Commander, where's your electromagnetic railgun? Arrive. A shadow clone behind him shouted at the top of his lungs. Pushing a huge metal turret, it aimed at Shukaku, who was still in a daze. Prepare. The dark muzzle suddenly danced with blue lightning arcs, and blue light gradually lit up from the depths of the barrel. Different from the electromagnetic gun used to defeat Iwa Ninja, Hyuga Satoru used version 2.0 this time, a real electromagnetic turret. Not to mention the caliber is twice as big. The propelling method of the artillery shells has also been upgraded, and its power is comparable to the aircraft carrier class electromagnetic railgun of the previous life. Shukaku was still in a daze, showing a childlike expression of confusion. What the hell is this? Never seen it. The leading shadow clone suddenly roared loudly. Fire! Boom! Along with the huge sonic boom, a huge blue light was seen passing by, spanning hundreds of meters in an instant, and hit Shukaku hard on the chest. Bah! The long metal cannonball showed terrifying tearing and penetrating power. In an instant, Shukaku's chest was torn open, creating a huge hole. Ah! Shukaku screamed in pain. His body suddenly fell backwards under the powerful impact, and the ground shook. Looking at this scene, the surrounding Konoha ninjas were stunned for a moment. Even Uchiha Rin opened his mouth slightly. Hyuga Satoru couldn't help but laugh. First meeting. I hope you will be happy, Shukaku. It means physics. Fire! Fire! The leading shadow clone continued to roar, and countless blue lights erupted from the barrel, hitting Shukaku heavily like raindrops. Ah! Human! Shukaku wanted to fight back. But the rounds from the turret with the largest caliber seemed to be aimed at its timing of getting up. Once it resisted the attack and tried to stand up, a shot hit him on the knee and he fell heavily again. Satoru, it's really... Uchiha Rin thought of her previous worries and suddenly felt a little ridiculous. Our tailed beast so weak. That's not right. How hard did it hit me? The surrounding Konoha ninjas swallowed and looked at this scene blankly. The unscientific scene before them gave them a strong sense of unreality. Shukaku's appearance was quite miserable. Before his broken chest could recover, it was smashed by a steady stream of electromagnetic cannons. Some shadow clones are particularly sinister. Just shoot right between its legs. Shivering. When will the tailed beast really stand up? Shukaku decided to lie down. If you stand up you will be beaten. It's better to just lie down. Turning sideways, he faced the blow and aimed his head at Hyuga Satoru with difficulty. The violent black and purple chakra continued to condense, and with a rising pitch of hissing, a pitch-black sphere appeared. Tailed Beast Jade is a skill that all tailed beasts have. Shukaku usually doesn't like to use Tailed Beast Jade. But now Hyuga Satoru is cornered. But what it didn't find was, while the Tailed Beast Jade was condensing, the largest fort was also flashing blue light. Whoosh! A huge blue light erupted and inserted into Shukaku's mouth accurately. Shukaku instantly felt that his mouth was filled with something. The newly condensed Tailed Beast Jade erupted uncontrollably and exploded in his mouth. When the smoke dissipated, the Konoha ninja saw it blankly. Shukaku's head is gone. After repeated heavy blows, Shukaku was finally overwhelmed and could no longer maintain his complete form. The headless body is shrinking. This scene was also seen by Luos Sha from a distance, and his eyelids jumped. What the hell? Can't even hold Shukaku. Am I a tailed beast? Am I such a big tailed beast? This is equivalent to the former prime minister of an island country giving a speech on the street, and suddenly he was shot in the dark and suddenly disappeared. Is this a beaver? This is very beaver. Wrong. Why does that beating blue flash look so familiar? That is not. Luos Sha's pupils suddenly shrank, and she felt as if her heart was clutched by something. Suddenly he used placer gold to control himself and fly upward. He saw a group of Hyuga Satoru, manipulating metal cannon barrels. Painful memories engulfed him instantly. Eyeballs burst with blood. Oh, it's you. Luos Sha spent a lot of time in deep thought. Why is my fate so miserable? When he left the village to perform a mission, he was suddenly hit by an arrow in his knee. I still can't find who shot it. The mission failed and he ran back to the village in despair. His reputation plummeted, and he silently gained infamy. He was unwilling to lie down and wanted to get hard. Then he was approached by Kakuzu, saying that he had stolen his person. Joke. I, Luos Sha, bring my own placer gold body protector when I go out. Do I look like someone who is short of money? Then, he handed over most of his savings. If I, Luos Sha, find out which beast is plotting against me, I must. 50,000 words are omitted below. Since then, it has become a dream for him. Later, he finally got through it. Became the 4th generation Cage. High-spirited and domineering. Hesitation in ambition. A war against Konoha was launched. Then he was shot. 36 senior officials died overnight. I hate it. Luos Sha looked up to the sky and sighed. He originally thought that he had taken out the bow and arrow from his knees, but now he realized. The opponent has been replaced by a cannon. The memories gradually faded away. Luos Sha stepped on the sand gold flying carpet, her eyes were bloodshot, and she glared at the group of Hyuga Satoru below. That row of pitch-black gun barrels still had blue thunder arcs beating at the muzzles. Oh, it's you. He squeezed out each word through his teeth. Discovered. The group of Hyuga Satoru turned their cannon barrels and aimed at Luos Sha. Luos Sha was completely filled with anger at this moment, and she raised her hands suddenly. Magnet style. Placer gold explosion. Wow! The battlefield suddenly surged with a large amount of placer gold, sweeping towards the group of Hyuga Satoru in a mighty manner. Like a golden tsunami, swallowing everything. But Luos Sha obviously underestimated the power of the magnetic storm legion. Fire! Fire! Boom! A huge blue light flashed past, and the sand gold surge was blown to pieces. Like broken plumeria, Luos Sha hugged his head and ran away. He hurriedly ran away on a gold dust flying carpet. While escaping, he used placer gold to form a huge surge to block the cannonballs that came from time to time. That's not right. Didn't I come here for revenge? Why did you escape? Luos Sha suddenly realized that her 50,000 words had not yet been completed. It has now been upgraded to 100,000 words. Gritting her teeth, Luos Sha looked for an opportunity to fight back. But it seemed that all his movements were captured by the other party. Whenever he tried to fight back, he was shot at. He was forced to continue running away. Fortunately, the shells were not particularly dense, so he could barely dodge them. Luos Sha suddenly thought of a word. Walk the dog. This vicious Hyuga brat. As a cage, I have to suffer such humiliation. Can this be tolerated? Luos Sha continued to run away in embarrassment. This scene was also seen by countless ninjas on the ground, who were stunned. As that, Kage-sama Rasa, why does he seem to be running away? How is it possible that the majestic 4th generation Kage was actually beaten to the point of running away with his head in his arms? Kage-sama, hold on, our puppet squad will come to support you soon. Until he escaped to the Sand Shinobi army. Luos Sha took a deep breath in panic. It's so far away, you probably can't shoot. Whoosh. Another cannonball fell next to him, piercing several Sand Shinobi. Luos Sha quickly used placer gold to defend himself, and thus managed to avoid the risk of being beheaded. No, it's not safe yet, you have to run further. The other side, Hyuga Satoru has begun to remove Shadow Clone in batches. Chakra is reaching its limit. The reason why he chose to force Luos Sha back instead of directly shooting him was because he had his own plan. The placer gold from Luos Sha will be of great help to his next plan. If you choose to go to Sand Hidden Village to search or refine it directly. Too time consuming. Hyuga Satoru couldn't wait any longer. Main body, my mission is completed. With the sound of bang bang bang, Shadow Clone gradually turned into white mist. Only a pile of cannon barrels and fallen metal armor were left. Hyuga Satoru stuffed a large handful of Bingliong pills into his mouth and closed his eyes to restore chakra. Prepare for his next plan. The battlefield became eerily quiet. Sand Shinobi and the Konoha ninja, who were still fighting in full swing, now seemed to have a tacit understanding and retreated away. They are very clear to each other. Now the final outcome of the war is not on them, but on those two magnet-style ninjas. Orochimaru also noticed the abnormality here and listened to the report of the sensing ninja. It's Hyuga Satoru. He used some kind of ninjutsu to defeat Shukaku, who had completely transformed into a tailed beast, and then forced Rasa away. Is this so? Orochimaru licked his lips, his snake-like vertical pupils shining brightly. Satoru. You always surprise me. From his view, he could only see one tail being knocked down by some kind of blue light. Although I vaguely guessed that it was related to Hyuga Satoru, I didn't expect it to be so surprising. I'm afraid Satoru's strength at this time has surpassed him. Chio also received information from Sand Shinobi. Gritting his teeth, showing a hint of unwillingness. He did not choose to continue to struggle with Tsunade, but rushed towards Luos Sha's position. Both sides know that the outcome of this war is now determined by the battlefield on the other side. At this time, Luos Sha was still hiding. Shocked. The spirit was stretched to the limit. Pay full attention to the surrounding trends. I was afraid that if a blue light suddenly flashed across my body, I would go straight to the west. The tragic scenes of the Sand Shinobi who died in the camp, as well as the previous scenes of running away like bereaved dogs, were constantly impacting his nerves. Hyuga Satoru's threat is all-encompassing. Once it disappeared from his sight. This may be the most dangerous moment. A drop of sweat fell from Luos Sha's forehead, and a group of sand shinobi surrounded him. Retreat. One tail has not been recycled yet. To retreat now would be to surrender. How is the situation with the blessing sharing? Wind. Kazekage-sama. The sensing ninja hesitated. Master Fenfu fell into a coma after transforming into a tailed beast. We wanted to recover him. But there would always be attacks coming suddenly. Already. Lost 3 Jonin, not yet. Asshole. Are you telling me? One tail fell into Konoha's hands. Luos Sha's teeth were almost broken. Defeat is nothing. If one tail is lost, it's over. Must get one tail back. Luos Sha's eyes were cold. Hyuga Satoru took a deep breath and felt extremely relaxed. Chakra is almost recovered. The corners of his mouth were slightly raised. Luos Sha was really shocked by him. Obviously he didn't do anything, but in order to prevent his sneak attack, he just didn't dare to play. Behind him, an unconscious monk was tied up with 5 flowers. Jinchuriki from One Tail Shukaku. Share blessings. Satoru, how should we deal with this old man? Uchiha Rin asked curiously. Exchange. Hyuga Satoru thought for a while and said. The tailed beast was of great importance, and it would definitely not be his turn to deal with it. But if you exchange it for Flying Thunder God's training method, there will be absolutely no problem. One Flying Thunder God is not enough. This time I'm going to take out all the Hokage's underwear. Visible to the naked eye, the battlefield changed again, and Luos Sha began to attack. Knowing that One Tail is here with me, can't you wait? Hyuga Satoru sneered. Luos Sha stepped on the placer gold flying carpet and flew high on the battlefield. While listening to the report of the sensing ninja, he searched for Fenfu's location with all his strength. One Tail is so important. He didn't care about being sniped by Hyuga Satoru. Soon, he made a discovery. The pupils suddenly shrank. Sure enough, it's you again. On the ground, Hyuga Satoru was looking at him with a sneer, and behind him lay a tied monk. Anger mixed with humiliation made Luos Sha angry. Mobilize the chakra in your body with almost full force. The ground suddenly shook. The mighty waves of placer gold surged like a golden ocean. Oh my god, is this the strength that carries the name of Shadow? Some ninjas watched this scene blankly. The shock level is even no less than that of the previous tailed beast. A large amount of placer gold rushed towards Hyuga Satoru like an 18-level tsunami. His small body looked like an ant in such a strong contrast. It could be swallowed up by a gold placer tsunami at any time. Good. Hyuga Satoru smiled slightly. Please do your best to please me. Create more placer gold. Luos Sha roared, and the gold placer tsunami hit hard and was about to engulf Hyuga Satoru. Suddenly, the tsunami stopped. As if the pause button had been pressed, it was strangely frozen in midair. Only Luos Sha was left, raising her arms and roaring at the top of her lungs. Looks a little retarded. Everyone was stunned by this scene. Luos Sha yelled for a long time and realized something was wrong. When he lowered his head and took a look, he suddenly opened his mouth in a daze. How could? Hyuga Satoru stretched out a finger and pointed it contemptuously at the placer gold tsunami. Can you even control sand gold? Luos Sha took a breath. Pupil earthquake. Everyone is also magnet style. Why is there such a big gap? I'm not convinced. Hyuga Satoru saw his doubts and smiled contemptuously. Your magnet style is female, and my magnet style is male. Understand, public magnet style, mother magnet style. And this thing, is magnet style divided into male and female? Third generation Kazekage has never been taught. Luos Sha was stunned for a moment. But he couldn't explain the scene before him. Hyuga Satoru's magnet style is so unscientific. I can control the shuriken, I can control the puppet, I can control Chio, I can even control his sand gold. This is herring. After the shock, there was a deep sense of unwillingness and humiliation. I'm not convinced. The roaring continued, and Luos Sha raised her arm again. Mobilize chakra with all your strength to create more placer gold, which crashes into Hyuga Satoru with great force. The size of the gold placer tsunami is growing. Hyuga Satoru smiled. Not bad. You are very hardworking. I like good employees like you who squeeze yourself and create benefits for the boss. The capitalists shed tears when they saw it. Finally, the amount of gold placer increased to a limit, and Luos Sha seemed to wither. He sensed that he was just a little short of breaking free from Hyuga Satoru's strange suppression, but he was already powerless. About there, Hyuga Satoru's eyes were cold. The body floated slowly, flying into the air and looking down at Luos Sha. At the same time, a black ocean surged out from the ground beneath his feet. The ninjas of Konoha found that their ninja tools were decomposing, turning into black liquid and flowing towards the ocean. A crackling sound sounded from Sand Shinobi's side. The forehead protector suddenly shrank, as if setting off fireworks. The large amount of Sand Shinobi had no time to react and died directly from the headshot. On the corpse, black liquid flows, converging towards the surging black ocean. This black sea was formed by Hyuga Satoru dismantling the metal in the hilly ground and gathering a large number of metal products from the ninjas of both sides. Like giant symbiote venom, full of the smell of death. Luos Sha found that the restraints on the placer gold disappeared. He took several deep breaths. If you maintain this move, will you no longer be able to control my placer gold? His eyes were cold, mobilizing the golden ocean to impact the black sea under Hyuga Satoru. The showdown between gold and black, mobilizing everyone's nerves on the battlefield. Almost everyone knows that the victory or defeat of these two people will directly determine the success or failure of the war. Wow! Two huge tsunamis collided. There was no earth-shattering vibration as imagined, but instead there was a strange condensation in the picture. The golden ocean stagnated. To be precise, at the moment of contact with the Black Sea, the speed suddenly became extremely slow. Luos Sha's heart seemed to be squeezed by something. He felt that at the moment of contact with the strange Black Sea, the surge of placer gold suddenly became extremely heavy, as if filled with mercury, making it almost difficult to move. Hyuga Satoru looked at this scene coldly. The Black Sea uses a large amount of metal to break into micron-level particles. In terms of density and fluidity, it far exceeds large particles of several millimeters in diameter such as placer gold. At the moment of contact, all the gaps between the placer gold particles will be filled immediately, disarming them directly. If it is broken down to the nanometer level, this performance will be even more obvious. It's just that the consumption is too huge. The Black Sea is constantly seeping into the golden ocean, as if it is infected with a virus. The originally bright gold turned into a dark gold. Luos Sha's pupils shrank. He found that he had lost control of the placer gold. Until all the placer gold is assimilated, leaving only a huge ocean of dark gold. Luos Sha's eyes are as gray as death. In his more than 20 years of career, he has never felt as powerless as he does now. Weak and incompetent, like a small boat, he may be swallowed by the dark golden ocean at any time. A huge suction force suddenly appeared on the placer gold flying carpet under the feet, and it fell uncontrollably downwards. Luos Sha just fell blankly, even forgetting to resist. A golem caught him. Luos Sha, cheer up. Chio's voice rang in his ears, but his eyes were still dull and he didn't make any response. Chio gritted his teeth and looked at the figure in the sky. Luos Sha's heart has been destroyed, and she may not achieve anything in this life. But she couldn't let him die here at will. Sand Hidden Village could no longer bear such a loss. 10 puppets built a ladder to catch the falling Luos Sha. This puppet has been modified to contain almost no metal. The dark gold ocean below stretched out a large number of tentacles and rushed towards Chio and her puppets. A large number of puppets were smashed into pieces. Chio did not dare to stay and ran away with Luos Sha. Hyuga Satoru looked at this scene indifferently. In the dark gold ocean beneath him, a huge drop of liquid condensed and floated slowly in front of Hyuga Satoru. Electric light danced on his fingertips, and Hyuga Satoru curled his fingers gently. Instantly, a huge blue light streaked across the battlefield, swallowing up a large number of sand shinobi. Chio gritted his teeth, turned his right-hand mechanism, and opened the blue chakra shield. The blazing white light seemed to swallow up everything. When it subsided, a deep ravine suddenly appeared, almost dividing the hill where the battlefield was located into two. What kind of technique is this? Sand shinobi collapsed. Escape in a hurry. Shadosuke, Chio and Kazekage all ran away, and the last move completely shattered their illusions. Lost. Everyone knew they lost. Hyuga Satoru landed next to the dark gold surge. With a whoosh, Namikaze Minato appeared beside him. with a hint of excitement and shock. Satoru, does your last move have a name? The Armstrong Cyclone Jet space-based super electromagnetic force cannon is the invincible Armstrong cannon. Hyuga gave him a blank look. Konoha tent. Hyuga Satoru pondered, thinking about how to use the gold just seized. It's not considered to be a seizure, it's obviously because his good brother Luos Sha insisted on sending it to him. I said, "Hi, your gold." He said, "It is your gold." I said, "It's yours." He said, "Keep it." I had no choice but to accept it reluctantly. Hyuga Satoru expressed his helplessness. Luos Sha worked hard to deliver the placer gold, and after purification by electromagnetic force, he obtained a lot of real gold. It would just be a good way to pave the way for his next plan. Hyuga Satoru breathed out. His eyes became serious. He had an idea long ago. Use nanometal and shadow clone to create a physical clone similar to Hashirama wood clone, or artificial life form. The current magnetic storm legion is composed of shadow clone. The power is quite impressive. This can be seen from the tragic situation of Shukaku. However, it has two fatal flaws. One is the feedback impact of shadow clone, and the other is crispy skin. In the former, Hyuga Satoru released the buffer in batches and gained a wave of experience points by the way. The latter was solved by Hyuga Satoru, who melted a large amount of metal armor and combined it with the weakened version of shadow clone's electromagnetic power. However, after all, it is still not as good as the magnetic storm army he envisioned. In the plan, when fighting Otsutsuki in the future, the magnetic storm legion can act as the main force. Pilot a Star Destroyer carrier and various Gundams to raid the Otsutsuki home planet. These two flaws are not solved. Hyuga Satoru's idea is just an idea after all. The solution is also very simple: modify shadow clone. Similar to Hashirama's wood clone. Or, similar to the mechanical sentry in X-Men. In the world of the X-Men, in order to completely deal with the threat of mutants, Littlefinger developed a robot called the Sentinel. This special sentry robot has the special attributes of absorbing mutant abilities and self-evolution. It's awesome. The mutants were almost destroyed, but Uncle Wolf was finally sent to several decades ago to reverse the future. Only by letting the mechanical sentry die was it possible to save the situation from destruction. That kind of special nano-robot made Hyuga covetous. It's time for the 2nd Battalion Commander and Regimental Commander to evolve. The gold sent by his good brother Luos Sha, coupled with the large amount of nano-magnetic fluid he created, has provided enough materials for his experiments. First, a large number of high-quality nanometals are screened out. Hyuga Satoru can already split any metal at will, but the quality after splitting is quite uneven. If it is only used in combat, the difference will naturally not be big. However, if it is used to make metal life forms, each nanometal particle is equivalent to a cell, and the highest quality raw materials must be used. Hyuga Satoru's idea is simple. Shadow clone is a chakra split into half of the main body, creating a crispy clone similar to the main body. So as long as the raw material of this clone is replaced by nanometal, and we find a way to extend the duration so that it can exist forever, is it equivalent to creating a metallic life form in disguise. There are many physical clones in the ninja world. Thunder clone, water clone, earth clone. A bunch of special clones added to the changes in the properties of chakra. The function is similar to shadow clone, both are small and crispy. Except wood clone. It's like a bug. It's 18 miles away from the main body and it can beat up Kakuzu. In the 4th battle, Hashirama's wood clone even dared to face Madara. It wasn't until Master Madara inserted a knife into it and pushed it up alive that it finally turned into a wooden body. It is conceivable how unscientific wood clone's ability to withstand beatings is. Hyuga Satoru began to form seals. At the same time, the silver magnetic fluid attached to the surface of the body begins to flow. Like a silver liquid, it split from the surface of his body, forming a wriggling liquid on the ground beside him. That is the magnetic fluid decomposed by the beheading sword. In terms of quality, it is the highest among all the nanometals that Hyuga has split. And there are hidden special properties. Vampire grows. The most indispensable thing on the battlefield is blood, and the magnetic fluid accumulated in the beheading sword is already very large. Completely enough for Hyuga Satoru's extravagance. The wriggling silver teardrop began to change. Hyuga Satoru started to pinch his face. A big-breasted girl with silver hair and blue eyes appeared. The overall skin is dark silver. Sleek. Hyuga Satoru is only responsible for pinching people, clothes and other things are not among his tasks. Take 2 steps. If you're not sick, take 2 steps. The android moved sluggishly. There is no life at all, not even physical feedback from the shaking. It looks like a special metal puppet. Hyuga Satoru frowned. This is far different from the metal life he imagined. At best, it can only be considered a high-end metal puppet. It cannot be said to be a defective product, it can only be said to be a fake. The so-called actions are essentially the control of his electromagnetic force, and there is no basic biological consciousness. If it were just this kind of thing, he could totally create a danger wanderer from Pacific Rim, or a Mechagodzilla. Not more exciting than this. What went wrong? Hyuga Satoru began to think deeply. Life forms made of nanometals, even in previous lives, only appeared in science fiction movies. Relying on the unscientific physical clones in the ninja world, Hyuga Satoru planned to use the bug method to experiment. Nanoscale electromagnetic force can do a lot of things. But it was really difficult for him to create a villain. Especially the pure metal villain. Next, Hyuga Satoru replaced other nanometals. The results were all failures. The accessory obtained is just a special puppet at best. Not only does it have no self-awareness, but even its actions require the assistance of Hyuga Satoru. It seems that it is too careless to create metal life forms in this way. Hyuga Satoru breathed out a breath and had to give up this plan. However, many experiments allowed him to vaguely grasp an important point. Puppet. These things I created are similar to puppets and have no biological activity. So what kind of puppet is a unique life? Scorpion. The most powerful puppet master who transformed himself into a puppet. Hyuga Satoru's eyes were bright, and he vaguely felt that he had caught something. Sand Shinobi Campground. The army is retreating. The atmosphere is depressing and sad. In the main camp, there is a feeling of sadness that people leave the tea to cool. Chio looked at Sand Shinobi, who was quietly cleaning up outside, and couldn't help but sigh. The armistice agreement has been sent to Konoha by messenger. As for the compensation for the defeat, there is no news yet. But Chio knew it would be no less. Because One Tail is in Konoha's hands. If you want to redeem One Tail, the price you pay is absolutely terrifying. This adds insult to injury to the already poor Sunagaku village. But they have no choice. He glanced at the camp behind him without leaving any trace. Luos Sha was sitting on a chair dully, with a dull look on his face, like a fool. When the village's survival is at stake, if a leader steps forward, it might not be so bad. But Luos Sha is dead. This was the result that Chio took him back from the battlefield and verified for 3 full days. As if he couldn't bear such a blow, his best magnet style was completely restrained by the opponent's male magnet style. Coupled with the previous heavy blows, Luos Sha's heart had been completely destroyed. The experienced Chio knew that it was impossible for Luos Sha to achieve anything in this state. At best, spend your life in sadness. 4th generation Cage location, maybe. Chio took a deep breath, finally made up his mind, and quietly called Yi Kang out of the tent. From now on, you will be the new 4th generation of the village, Cage. Real. Yi Kang took a breath. The position she had dreamed of was placed in front of her, giving her an unreal illusion. Luos Sha has. Chio looked at the dull Luos Sha without leaving a trace, and sighed and shook his head. He had no choice but to take orders in the face of danger. Luos Sha was completely disabled. He is getting old, and Sand Hidden Village will eventually have a new leader. In the entire village, the only one who is capable is Yi Kang. In the war that just ended, she made a lot of contributions in blocking Namikaze Minato. After returning to the village, Jonin was arranged to vote for a formality, and the new 4th generation project, Cage, was determined. Thank you, Chio-sama, I will definitely live up to your expectations. Yi Kang said in surprise. In the tent, Luos Sha, who heard their conversation, twitched her fingers a few times rarely. Chio glanced at him indifferently, turned around and left without stopping. Luos Sha was the only one left in the empty camp. Sitting in the shadows. He slowly raised his head, a tear slipped from the corner of his eye, and his dry lips opened hoarsely. The voice was hoarse, like yellow sand blown by the wind. How can enlightenment arise when sand is born? Hyuga Satoru put his finger on his chin, frowning slightly, staring at the strange life squirming in front of him. Said it was life. Rather, it's more like some kind of tentacle. The slimy, metallic kind. It was about as thick as his forearm. He just stood up, twitched a few times, and then went weak again. He was motionless and looked like he had farted. He exhaled. Write this down in the notebook on the table next to you. In the 139th test, the idea of a nucleus was successful. This kind of nucleus, similar to a certain program, can indeed give metals biological activity. But for now, this activity is too fragile. Far from being a weapon of war. The next step is to create more cores, and distribute them inside the humanoid metal life form to serve as organs. The trials continue. Quote, Hyuga Satoru took out a breath and moved his somewhat stiff cervical vertebrae. Finally, when he turned his direction to making a scorpion-like life form, he achieved results. The opposite path to Orochimaru. Scorpion chose mechanical technology. He gave up his body and transferred his consciousness to the regeneration core to achieve mechanical ascension. This gave Hyuga Satoru inspiration. Nuclear was born. Using the combination of nanometal and chakra, consciousness is programmed and implanted, thereby endowing the metal with biological activity. Somewhat similar to AI, but completely different. More like some kind of organ. Similar to the regenerative core of a scorpion. In principle, Hyuga Satoru's current nano-level electromagnetic force can indeed transform his body. Thus the machine ascends. But Hyuga Satoru wouldn't do that. Evolution. His body is evolving. Each upgrade of electromagnetic force will transform his body. Now his body has surpassed that of most humans. This is also the reason why Ant Snake covets his body. Giving up this kind of almost unlimited evolution and turning to the Mechanicus instead is obviously not worth it in Hyuga Satoru's opinion. The abilities of the nano-mechanical body can be completely replaced by a clone. Just like his current steps, create a special nano-life form to act as his own clone. The main body physically ascends, and the clone ascends mechanically. Doesn't he smell good? The thing created by Hyuga Satoru already has certain biological activity. The root cause is the terrifying memory properties of nanometal materials and chakra's lack of science. Chakra itself can give dead objects a certain degree of activity. Especially the Yang-style chakra. Sage of Six Paths split the sacred tree and used yin-yang style to create 9 different tailed beasts. The reincarnation developed by Chio can even give life to puppets. Earth-style's ultimate creation technique, the soil of the dead, can use corpse soil to pinch people and create a lot of clay life forms. In the ninja world, unscientific things like creating life are not that rare. The key is to create a life that is powerful enough. Like a mechanical sentry, the direction is right. The next step is to keep trying. Just then, there was a knock on the door. Hyuga Satoru frowned slightly, packed his things, and opened the gate of opening. Hyuga Satoru-sama, Orochimaru-sama invites you to go to his camp. The tone of the ninja who conveyed the message was a little trembling. After that battle, Hyuga Satoru's reputation in the camp was already full and he became the idol of many people. I see, Hyuga Satoru said solemnly. As it happens, he also has something to ask Orochimaru. Click. The tent door was pushed open. Orochimaru looked at the person coming in surprise. Satoru, you're here. Well, I heard you were looking for me. That's right. Orochimaru groaned. Tsunade village sent someone to deliver the armistice agreement. Oh, Hyuga Satoru was not surprised. Chio was defeated by him, Luos Sha was defeated in public, and one tail was lost again. If Sand Hidden Village doesn't surrender, it would be too stubborn. You have made great contributions to this battle, but I advise you to be careful later. Orochimaru just looked at Hyuga Satoru. Eyes mean. Everyone who understands understands. Hyuga Satoru nodded. Show that you understand, Danzo, or Hokage. The strength you have shown will probably frighten them. Although he didn't know what those high-level officials were thinking, Hyuga Satoru could guess that it was nothing more than a power struggle. The status of branch house should give me a lot of points. This represents absolute control. Of course, no one knows yet that the thing on their forehead has become a decoration. The Zong family. I'm afraid they will also have some ideas. This problem must be solved as soon as possible. After this war is over, there is still a lot to be done. Hyuga Satoru couldn't help but sigh slightly. By the way, Orochimaru, you have the secret technique to divide souls, right? He asked suddenly. Yes, but Wujun, what do you want this for? Orochimaru stared at Hyuga Satoru suspiciously. The immortal reincarnation he developed will use the secret techniques related to soul division, but it has not been practiced yet. It's useful. If you have it, I can exchange it for something. Wujun, you are too polite. Your contribution in the war is enough to exchange for a lot of secret skills. Orochimaru smiled and opened his mouth. Spit out a slimy scroll. Hyuga Satoru pinched it with 2 fingers in disgust. Looking at him slightly teasingly. Orochimaru, have you ever considered transferring your soul into a body with more potential? Orochimaru was stunned for a moment, then laughed awkwardly. I didn't expect to be discovered by Wujun. I did have such thoughts. But I'm afraid Wujun's strength has surpassed mine. Naturally, it's impossible for me to make such a plan to Wujun. Then have you ever thought about it, if you were to replace someone else's body, would you still be you? Hyuga Satoru smiled slightly and stared at him. Are you still you? Orochimaru frowned in thought. Hyuga Satoru's questions kept ringing in his ears. This is a philosophical question and is not within the scope of his research. Hyuga Satoru paused and continued. In other words, have you ever thought about using your own body to cultivate a more powerful body and then replace it? You have become stronger, but you are still you. Orochimaru felt like something exploded in his head. Use your own body to grow a new body. How to cultivate? Split, clone, or fertilized egg. What about eggs? Can powerful sperm be selected using genetic screening? What about eggs? Want to change your gender? Orochimaru's eyes were bright and he was deep in thought. Gender is not a factor in his consideration at all. As long as he can live forever, those slight differences can be completely ignored. It seems that in the experiment, women lived longer. Moreover, reincarnation is achieved through self-cultivation. It can also eliminate many disadvantages that invade other people's bodies. Embryos can use nutrient solution to accelerate growth, and age is not a problem. I gave birth to myself. Orochimaru looked strange. Hyuga Satoru shook his head, smiled, and walked out of the tent. Konoha, Hokage room. Sarutobi Hiruzen frowned and was listening to the latest information coming back from the battlefield. Public magnet style. Is there really such a magnet style? He looked at Anbu in front of him in shock. The Anbu looked quite embarrassed and hesitated. That is indeed what the information said. Hyuga Satoru used the male magnet style to defeat the 4th generation Kazukage's female magnet style. This has been confirmed by Orochimaru-sama. Is that so? Sarutobi Hiruzen looked a little solemn. Regardless of whether magnet style is male or female, Hyuga Satoru's performance in this war was amazing. Originally, he thought that paired with Minato, it would play a big role. Unexpectedly, Minato completely became a supporting role. Shadosuke Chio and Kazekage Rasa were all defeated by Hyuga Satoru. This kind of achievement is not terrible. Even if he takes action, I'm afraid it will be difficult to do better. A strong man at the shadow level who is less than 14 years old. At this age, Orochimaru had just defeated Jonin. This growth rate. The Anbu ninja hesitated for a moment and continued. According to the information conveyed by Master Orochimaru, he seemed to have defeated Rasa by relying on his ability to restrain himself. His own strength is not that terrifying. Sarutobi Hiruzen exhaled. I see. Whatever the reason, he far underestimated Hyuga Satoru's talent. Especially the scary male magnet style. Unheard of. Now it seems that instead of controlling metals such as shuriken and kunai, all metals can be controlled. What does that mean? Sarutobi Hiruzen breathed a little heavier. Once this kind of public magnet style blood is passed down, the blood will be passed down. I'm afraid it will become a blood step family that dominates Hyuga. There should be a few girls of the right age among the Sarutobi clan. Sarutobi Hiruzen suddenly groaned. Anbu. Oh, it's okay, you can go down first. Yes, Lord Hokage. With a whoosh, Anbu disappeared. Not long after the Anbu left, he heard a bang, the door of the Hokage room was kicked open, and a figure walked in hastily. Hiruzen, did you hear that? What he awakened was the magnet style that surpassed the 4th generation case cage. Danzo pressed one hand on the table, his bandaged face was full of surprise, and spittle was flying. Give him to me. I want it all. Calm down. Sarutobi Hiruzen raised his head and glanced at him indifferently. It is still unclear what the so-called male magnet style is. Is it a blood mutation? Or is it some unknown blood-stained elimination? Anyway, it is definitely better than the ordinary magnet style. Luos Sha's magnet style is no match for him. Think about it, Hiruzen, if such a magnet style can be artificially developed and mastered, who else in the 5 great ninja villages can stop Mu? Ye rise. Give him to me. I want it all. Danzo repeated excitedly. Did you forget he's a branch house? Sarutobi Hiruzen said calmly. The excitement on Danzo's face subsided instantly, as if a basin of cold water had been poured on him. Branch house. This means being completely controlled by the Zong family. Even if he wants to leave, there is no way to release the caged bird. If the Zong family just says a word, they will have to send it back in pieces. Then at least leave a bloodline. Danzo said stubbornly with an ugly face. He is a 1st-generation heir. The ability to inherit blood should be hereditary. I still have a few women of the right age. Enough. Sarutobi Hiruzen interrupted him impatiently. There is no female ninja below 30 in your base, right? Is this also called the right age? As long as she can give birth. Danzo said stiffly. Hyuga realizes that the temptation of magnet style is too great. Not to mention the current female ninjas, it would be absolutely fine for him to recruit a few more younger ones. I still don't know the attitude of the Zong family. Sarutobi Hiruzen frowned. Danzo couldn't help but fall silent. After all, Hyuga Satoru is Hyuga's branch house. Even if they plan it here for a long time, the Zong family can veto it with just one sentence. He had never hated a caged bird so much. This is equivalent to you suddenly finding a gold mine and wanting to mine it, only to find a talisman of a caged bird stuck on the mountain. It is claimed that this mountain was created by me and the copyright is owned for 500 years. You scratched your head anxiously, but you were completely helpless. Because they have their own self-destruction system, if you are in a hurry, they will give you gold. I originally planned to pay a certain price so that the Zong family could allow Wu's blood to be spread outside the family, but now it seems that it will be very troublesome. Sarutobi Hiruzen's face looked a little ugly. Hyuga Satoru's value skyrocketed. It is probably unrealistic to rely on the previous conditions to impress the clan and break the millennium-old family rules with Hyuga Satoru. Those old stubborn people still don't know what they are planning. After all, even if he is a Hokage, he cannot directly interfere with the Hyuga clan's rules. Danzo's eyes darkened. Don't know what they are planning. Hyuga clan land. Compared with the noise and chaos outside, it seems a little quiet here. Hyuga Suigetsu stood with his hands behind his hands, his back to Hyuga Hiyashi, and looked out the door with deep eyes. A deep voice sounded. Hiyashi, when this war is over, you will take over the throne. Hyuga Hiyashi's heart tightened, knowing that the clan leader was passing on the throne. He immediately bowed and replied. Yes. Hyuga took a breath, frowned slightly, and said in a deep voice. Do you have any ideas about that branch house? Of course Hyuga Hiyashi knew who the patriarch was talking about. He opened his mouth to say something, but fell silent in the end. Hyuga shook his head and sighed. It's a pity that he is not from the Zong family. After his death, Hiyashi couldn't help but feel regretful. If Hyuga Satoru was a clan member, he wouldn't be in such trouble. But he is a branch house. The Zong family will not allow a branch house to be born in the family that will shake its rule. Especially an alternative like Hyuga Satoru. If you had agreed to become my disciple, maybe. Hyuga Hiyashi couldn't help but sigh slightly. Now, it is no longer his turn to take charge of the situation. Konoha tent. Hyuga Satoru stared at the mechanical life in front of him with sharp eyes. The silver metal body reflects the luster, and the texture is full of muscles. It seems that a casual punch has the power to move mountains and reclaim seas. There are 5 cores in this nanometal life form. The nuclei are intertwined and connected to each other, forming a complex life system similar to the human body. Its energy mainly comes from the electrical energy generated by the friction of nanometal particles in the body, which can be converted into chakra through the nucleus. Nanometals have many remarkable properties. Its ability to gain and lose electrons is much stronger than that of ordinary materials. Hyuga Satoru remembers that in his past life, there was a time when frictional nano-generators were very popular, using the friction of the nano-coating between human walking shoes to convert mechanical energy into electrical energy. Each nanometal particle in this nanometer life form is a small generator. Of course, its energy structure is not just that simple. Because of the plasticity of magnetic fluid, it has almost no fixed shape and properties. Solar energy, wind energy, etc. will all become the energy sources they utilize. In the future, Hyuga Satoru is considering adding nuclear fission to the mix. The reason why we attach so much importance to the energy of the avatar is because the energy of the avatar can be linked to the main body. When I was practicing Sage Jutsu, I used Shadow Clone to defeat the enemy. The main body flirts with Hinata while beating pain. Shadow Clone 007 accumulates the power of nature. The capitalists shed tears when they saw it. If you don't make use of this perfect clone of a worker, you will be killed by the capitalists. No matter how far apart they are, this special clone will convert its own energy into chakra and continuously deliver it to Hyuga Satoru. As for the principle, whether it is quantum entanglement or simple chakra link. All in all, it is a very useful ability for Hyuga Satoru. From now on, you don't have to worry about running out of mana when you open it up. Activate the hidden energy in your back. Don't worry about betrayal. Hyuga Satoru can penetrate into the clone's consciousness at will, and even directly take over the body. The perfect jobber. Take a deep breath. He started to wake up. The surface of the silver glossy body turns upward like scales, resembling the image of Iron Man's nano suit combined. The metal life slowly opened its eyes. What caught his eye was a pair of pure white eyes with an expectant look. Who I am. Like a newborn baby, he stared at Hyuga Satoru doubtfully. Zero, your name is Zero. Hyuga Satoru smiled. Or, number. It means starting from scratch. Zero. He seemed to be chewing on the name. A large amount of memories were poured in, causing him to frown subconsciously. To test your abilities, go ahead. Bring me their eyes. An indifferent voice sounded in Zero's ears. At the same time, 3 figures came into his mind. Those 3 pairs of eyes were the same as those of the creator in front of him. Pure white and flawless. Lord Huajun, why do you think the clan leader summoned us back so urgently? In the forest, 3 figures shuttled quickly, sweeping the surrounding trees behind them. I don't know, but it probably has something to do with that Hyuga Satoru. Jonin, the clan member named Hyuga Fire Formation, frowned tightly while moving quickly. Hyuga Satoru. The 2 branch house ninjas behind him spoke in surprise. Yes, the clan leader sent me to the Sand Shinobi camp with the intention of getting in close contact with him, but I didn't expect. Hyuga Fire Array couldn't help but clenched his teeth slightly. As a clan member, this was the first time he suffered such humiliation. Especially, the other party is a branch house. But he had to swallow it, whether it was because of the opponent's strength or Orochimaru's sake. The 2 branch houses couldn't help but fall silent. Hyuga Satoru's performance was so shocking. Defeating Chio already shocked them, and then he defeated Rasa with overwhelming force. This has a completely different meaning. Risako is the cage of the 4th generation, mastering the limits of the magnet-style blood succession. In that battle, they all saw clearly that Luos Sha's magnet style had no ability to resist Hyuga Satoru. Even the placer gold he created completely fell into the hands of the other party. So scary. In comparison, the white-eyed blood successor that they were so proud of was not that unusual. Hyuga Fire Formation's eyes flickered. He guessed that the clan leader's message asking him to return to the village might have a deeper meaning. It is very likely that a clan meeting is currently being held in the family to discuss how to deal with Hyuga Satoru. Hyuga Fire Formation is currently unclear whether the clan leader has made a decision. There are very few people in the clan lineage, and only the clan leader and a few elders are in power. But if possible, he would like Hyuga Satoru to die immediately. Being laughed at by a branch house, this humiliation has been deeply imprinted in his mind. Of course, it must not be him who takes action, he must rely on the power of the family. Hyuga Satoru has a lot at stake. Whether it is Hokage or Orochimaru, they need to use their families to play the game. Thinking like this, he felt slightly happy in his heart. Ah, a branch house is just a branch house after all, how dare you tarnish the clan? Ridiculous. Suddenly, the two Hyuga branch houses behind him shouted in surprise. Master Huajun, a strange chakra suddenly appeared in front of you. Yeah, you can't be wrong. The other party appeared out of thin air and happened to be blocking our path. I'm afraid it's coming for us. Hyuga Fire Formation frowned. As a clan house, I have always been protected and my vigilance is much lower than that of a branch house. Even so, a trace of doubt could not help but arise in my heart. Who dares to stand in front of them? You must know that the three of them are all Jonin. With the bonus of Byakugan Shitsu, even elite Jonin can only take a detour. Hyuga's fire formation activated his Byakugan. A strange object appeared in the field of vision. He said it was an object because he couldn't even tell it was a human being. There is no such thing as meridians in the body, and even the chakra fluctuations are quite weak. Under the detection of white eyes, it is like a dark iron plate. What kind of monster is this? Hyuga Fire Formation gasped. The three of them stopped at the same time, staring at the inhuman-looking object in front of him. The body reflected the silver metallic luster, especially his face, which seemed to be wearing a silver-white metal mask. Only one glowing yellow eye was exposed, cold and devoid of any human vitality. Your Excellency, we should have no grievances or grudges. Huo-Gen swallowed and said cautiously. He wasn't sure whether the strange object in front of him could understand him. Zero began to scan the information of the three people, and it overlapped with the picture of the three people provided by Hyuga Satoru in his mind. Target confirmed. Zero started to take action and walked slowly towards the three of them. Seeing that Ling had no intention of giving up, Huo-Gen couldn't help but get angry. Who are you? Do you really plan to attack Hyuga? Ultraman. Zero spoke coldly. Ultraman, what is that? The three of them were stunned. In this short moment, Zero started to take action. The silver fluid in his right hand squirmed and turned into a sharp machete, the blade reflecting cold light. The body suddenly jumped up and hit the three of them heavily. In a hurry, several people finally reacted. He hurriedly avoided. Boom! The ground suddenly exploded, and spider web-like cracks spread. What power is this? Several people took a breath of cold air and their eyelids jumped. No longer daring to show any contempt, a branch house Jonin assumed a gentle fist stance, took a deep breath, and continued to attack Zero's body with gentle fist. Gentle fist law. 8 trigrams 60. Hey, it hurts me so much. Accompanied by a crisp metal collision. Before he finished reading the name of the move, he covered his red and swollen palms and bared his teeth. So hard, like a turtle shell, I can't beat it. Zero gave him a cold look. The right hand changes the long sword swing. Poof. Blood rain splashed, and the branch house's hands separated directly. A shrill scream sounded. Asshole. Another branch house's eyes were red. The palm was the most important part of Hyuga besides the eyes. Even if it was attached, it would be useless in the future. Master Huajun, please leave quickly. I'll hold him back. The branch house kept hitting 8 trigrams air palm. The air cannon hit Zero, who was walking towards him, causing his body to stagnate slightly and making a crisp sound of metal meeting. We have seen the consequences of close combat. Air palm is Hyuga's only long-range attack. What a qualified slave. Zero playful sarcasm. This sentence exploded directly in Huo-Gen's mind. Obviously, the other party knows Hyuga's system very well and is well prepared. Who are you? He gritted his teeth and stared at Zero. Didn't I say so? Ultraman. Ultraman, are you not going to reveal your identity at this time? Are you so cautious? When did the 5 major countries have a ninja named Ultraman? Back to the days. The body rotates at high speed. Transformed into a blue chakra hemisphere, trying to block Zero's attack. Upon contact with Zero's body, a large number of sparks flew everywhere. Zero's body began to dissolve, and a lot of metal tentacles stretched out, wrapping directly around the blue hemisphere. With a large number of sparks flying, Keishin was forced to stop. Countless tentacles directly penetrated his body, but strangely no blood flowed out, being absorbed by the metal tentacles. Lord Fire Formation. The branch house wanted to support him, but a large number of tentacles directly penetrated his lower body. Zero frowned slightly. The Zong family can kill at will, but the branch house cannot. If they die, they will be gone. The silver metal squirmed, and Ling Yu turned into its original form, digging out the fire formation's eyes. Walk up to the two branch houses who have lost the ability to resist. Who are you? The man spoke weakly. Ultraman who saved Hyuga. He heard Zero's cold voice. Tent. Hyuga Satoru was playing with the models on the table when something suddenly crawled out from the ground next to him. Became like a person. Open your palms. 3 pairs of pure white eyes with bloodshot eyes. It seems to be going well. Hyuga Satoru took the 3 eyes. Upon closer inspection, 2 of the pairs seemed to be defective, with traces of erosion behind the eyeballs. This is a concession made to address the caged bird. Hyuga Satoru has understood the mechanism of the caged bird very thoroughly. With Zero's ability, although he can also cause bugs to crash the caged bird, he is ultimately not as skilled as his own. But the slight damage to the eyeball is nothing. Those 3 Hyugas are absolutely pro-sect members, and it is impossible for him to just let them go back. Everyone saw that I had been staying in the camp for the past 2 days. So I really had nothing to do with their disappearance. Hyuga Satoru was helpless, expressing silence. Konoha tent. Orochimaru stared at Hyuga Satoru in front of him with sharp eyes. Woojun, you have been staying in the camp these days. You must be doing something, right? That's right, I developed a new ninjutsu, but it can't be put on the market. Hyuga Satoru said casually. Yeah, Orochimaru chewed a little and continued. Did you know, yesterday, Sunagaku Village's new 4th generation cage was announced, and it's Hyakura. Yeah, Hyuga Satoru became curious. He had been making villains these days and didn't pay much attention to the outside situation. Luos Sha seems to have been crippled. Tisk tisk, the great ninja village's cage has actually fallen to this level. Orochimaru laughed hoarsely. He can imagine Luos Sha's current miserable state. This is not a normal cage transfer. Otherwise, Yi Kang should be the 5th generation cage, not the 4th generation. This means, Luos Sha was dismissed. Ridiculous. It seems to be the first time in history that the shadow of a village will be abolished. Hyuga Satoru also shook his head and smiled. Unexpectedly, his good brother Luos Sha has been ruined by him. This is inevitable. Yin Luos Sha seems to have been trying every possible way since he left the village. Good brother, you can't blame me. I was training you, but you didn't get over it. Hyuga Satoru expressed helplessness. And one more thing. Orochimaru's hoarse voice sounded, and he looked at Hyuga Satoru with a smile. Wu-kun, your bounty in the underground black market has reached 100 million taels. I heard that a certain ninja in the black market who had fought with first Hokage is looking for you all over the world. Oh, Hyuga Satoru looked strange. It seems Kakuzu is right. He had previously controlled Placer Gold to rob his goods, and put the blame on Luos Sha, sitting on the mountain and watching the fight between tigers and tigers. Now that Magnet Style's abilities have been exposed, it's normal for Kakuzu to look for him all over the world. What's more, there is a bounty of 100 million taels. Wu-kun, aren't you nervous at all? Orochimaru looked at Hyuga Satoru curiously. He was a ninja who had fought against first Hokage. Just with this name, he might be able to frighten a lot of ninjas. Nervous? Why should I be nervous? Hyuga Satoru looked at him strangely. He suddenly had an idea that could make a big profit. It's just a bit expensive, Kakuzu. Orochimaru was stunned for a moment, shook his head, and continued. The latest information is that after the Iwa Ninja village learned about Gokun's ability, they replaced shurikens and kunai with bone and wood overnight to ensure that the weapons did not contain any metal. I heard that the price of weapons in the ninja world has fluctuated greatly recently. All the major ninja villages are buying non-metallic weapons at high prices. Yeah, Hyuga Satoru suddenly thought. Didn't the Uchiha Rin family own a ninja shop? And the business was huge. Do you want to discuss with Rin, mass-produce non-metallic weapons, and cut a wave of leaks? He doesn't care what type of weapons the enemy is equipped with, his abilities are much more than that. What's more, no matter what, the sale of non-metallic weapons is an inevitable trend. It is better to make someone else's money easier than one's own. What about the forehead protector? The weapon can be replaced by bone or wood, and the forehead protector is also metal, right? Hearing Hyuga Satoru's question, Orochimaru suddenly laughed. Except for Konoha, every major village is inventing new types of forehead protectors. The most popular one right now is using strips of cloth to draw the Jonin village logo. Is there still such an operation? Cloth, paint a logo. The image is so powerful. Hyuga smiled and said, are the strips of cloth they use white? Orochimaru thought for a moment. Well, it seems that to save costs, many of them are undyed white cloth strips. Poof. Hyuga Satoru laughed out loud. This can be regarded as a disguised promotion of the economic development of the ninja world. Is there an ideological awakening? Orochimaru suddenly fell silent, staring at Hyuga Satoru deeply. By the way, Satoru-kun, the 3 Hyuga ninjas who returned early are missing. Yeah, Hyuga Satoru pretended to be surprised and spoke. We don't know the reason yet, and no traces of fighting have been found. It seems like he disappeared out of thin air. I have been staying in the camp and I didn't know about it until now. After all, they are all of the same race, I hope they are fine. Hyuga Satoru shrugged in silence. Yes, Orochimaru laughed hoarsely. Wujun has been staying in the camp, I can confirm this. The troops began to evacuate. Return to Konoha in a grand manner. Sand Shinobi has surrendered. The armistice agreement is still being signed, and Sunagaku village is facing huge compensation for defeat. If you want to redeem one tail, you have to add another 0. Adding fuel to the fire to a village that is already not wealthy. Hyuga Satoru suddenly thought that his good brother Rasa might have to work part-time to pay off the debt. Cage's position is gone, but Magnet style is still there. I'm afraid that even if he digs gold all his life, he may not be able to pay off the debt. The experience value of upgrading electromagnetic force to LV5 is 100,000. I want to improve my strength through upgrading in the short term. Not realistic. Hyuga Satoru set his sights on scientific research. Whether it is the reincarnation plan or promoting family changes, a lot of money is needed. Hyuga Satoru laughed, although he is following the large army back to the village at the moment. But he is here and not here. It seems very complicated and involves quantum mechanics. It's actually very simple. He took over Zero's body. The main body followed the large army back to the village, and nothing seemed out of the ordinary. On the other side, he controlled the clone to secretly go to the underground black market. The perfect alibi. For Zero, Hyuga can take over the body at any time as long as he wants. This is why he has no worries about rebellion or self-awareness. Because Zero is essentially his clone, a pure clone that only grows on its own. A forest dozens of miles away from Konoha's main force. A silver metal fighter jet was flying quickly at low altitude, with blue flames spraying from its tail. Until a certain moment, the fighter jet suddenly landed in the forest. The silver fluid squirmed and turned into the appearance of Hyuga Satoru. There seems to be almost no difference. Hyuga Satoru smiled. His current body looks very much like the Terminator in the Terminator movie. But it's the super pro version. This is the horror of nanomaterials. Although they are essentially metal, they can completely achieve the appearance of humans through the stacking of nanomolecules. Combined with the transformation technique, it is the ultimate transformation technique. Not only does it imitate the appearance, but it also feels and even uses exactly the same. This clone is much weaker than the main body in terms of electromagnetic force capabilities, but in some aspects, the main body is also incomparable, such as changes in length. In the future, Hyuga Satoru will consider using him as one of his vests. But for now, he has Kakuzu to deal with. Although this clone cannot use the Byakugan's ability, its electromagnetic perception is still there. Kakuzu's body with 5 hearts is unusually conspicuous in electromagnetic perception. It's almost here. Hyuga Satoru raised the corner of his mouth. I hope everyone will support it and subscribe more.